Hi, welcome to another IAS podcast special. We're doing something that I think all of us here are very much looking forward to because it's about samurai and ninjas and stuff like that. So I am joined by a bunch of cool guests, and I'm gonna go down and read off the list of guests that we have. So starting off, we have Jared, Avalanche Reviews. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Jared. I piss and moan about old retro video games no one cares about on the internet.
And then up next, we have Daybreaker Rain. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
How's it going, everybody? We've been planning to do this particular podcast for, God, I feel like we've been talking about this since like last year. So finally glad to sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it for almost 2 years actually, now that I think about it.
God, has it been that? Jeez.
Yeah, I think we pushed it back because of Ghost of Tsushima. So, and then we just never got around to it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and try to get this done because I really wanted to do it. So anyway, up next we got Devil Hunter James. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
How's it going, folks? I've been waiting for this for a hot minute. I feel like we did this at the best time because the Ninja Gaiden just came out. So like, what better time to do this than now?
Yeah.
And then after that, we got Sing, which I think this is your first time on a podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
It pretty much is. Just happy to be here because I am an unashamed weeb.
Hey. And then last but not least, we got Sir Brandel. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm fucking exhausted.
Me too. And then you all know me as BioDevil Dom, BioDevil underscore Dom. But without any further delays, let's get right into this podcast. So, to start things off, what is your favorite ninja or samurai game? For me, that's a real tough one because I have quite a few favorite games, but I think it's gonna have to boil down to I think my favorite series in particular would have to be Onimusha. That's the one game that kind of kickstarted my interest in feudal Japanese style games. Anybody else want to go next on this one?
I have a
want
weird
to.
combination of favorites, I think. So I'm with you right there. Onimusha is where it's at for sure. But I get into the Shiren the Wanderer series too, which I think technically counts.
Okay. Yeah, see, I knew having Jared on board would be interesting because he was gonna start throwing out like games that I probably would have never heard of or thought of.
Oh
So
yeah, I get into weird stuff.
yeah.
Okay, well, I can go next because I'll do another one that you might not be familiar with, Dom. I would have to say that the Ganbare Goemon games,
Ooh, there you go.
particularly
Okay.
Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. It's an absolute favorite
Mhm.
of mine. Always will be.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing Kid Shoryuken talk about that series actually.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
it's a very underrated series. Like it's got a cult following, but they
Hmm.
just it's Konami owned, so then they haven't done crap with it. So
Yeah, typical Konami.
yeah,
Anybody else want to go on this one?
I'm gonna throw a curveball. Dom knows this one, but some other people might not. As Ninja Shadow of Darkness is like one of the first ninja games I've ever played. It was made by IDOS when they were doing Tomb Raider.
On the PS1,
yes,
right?
yeah.
Uh,
It's one of those Eidos Crystal Dynamics games I've never played because I've played like all the other ones that I remember like were on like Gex as like a demo. It was like Tomb Raider,
Yeah.
Akuji the Heartless, and stuff like that. I've played like all the
Mhm.
other ones except that one. That's the only one I haven't played.
It's also a demo on. There's a demo of the actual game itself on a Tomb Raider 1's disc that came with it. So that was always
okay.
nice. But yeah, it's an awesome beat 'em up, and it kind of kick-started me in there. I think if I had to pick something more famous, though, I would have said Tenchu.
Yee.
And then I
Yeah.
just basically spiraled down into everything else that everybody knows that exists.
Hmm.
For
That's
sure.
a samurai game or samurai theme then, because you already mentioned ninjas and shit.
Samurai is hard because I didn't play a lot of samurai stuff growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have a particular one in that regard. I can't say.
I gotta ask, is anybody else in here, anybody else in the call that's into the Way of the Samurai series like I am?
I have one of the games, but I have not played it.
Mm.
Played 3 and I'm like, what the fuck am I playing?
That's
Yeah,
what I
It's
was
like-
like. Yeah, like it's not bad, but it's like I don't know what I'm doing.
yeah, it's very weird, but I love it for some odd reason. It's a weird niche.
Yeah, I never got
Here's-
My
into
only
it.
experience with that one was the first game, and even then, just for one playthrough, and that was it.
Mm. Yeah, that's a series that gets better as you play the more newer games because it seems like the dev team likes to try to improve the mechanics and certain aspects to like the choose your own adventure style of samurai game, which we'll definitely talk about in a later question.
Yeah, I didn't want to ask about some more obscure titles if we're gonna cover it in another question. So
Yeah.
I
Um,
guess since this is going yet, I may as well throw in my hand in the tally here. But yeah,
Hmm.
my favorite samurai game is. I'm not sure if you guys remember this one, but I have a special place in my heart for the Bushido Blade 1 on the
Oh.
Ooh, yeah.
nice.
completely off topic, but since you brought up Bushido Blade, did any of you guys ever play the video game based off the Deadliest Warriors TV show?
Yes, I have actually.
Yeah,
I
it
played both of them.
plays exactly like Bushido Blade. It's literally just like a more modern Bushido Blade.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
damn.
like the health bar don't matter. You take like 1 or 2 hits and you die. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's stupid fun with friends, so I definitely recommend it.
That rules.
Yeah. My
So
friend
I
hated
actually
me
have
when I
a-
played that game.
I have a funny story about that. Around the time that I got my PS3, that game had already come out, and I never played the game, but I got the like one of my first avatars on PlayStation Network. I got the like samurai icon because it looked so fucking cool.
Nice.
Wait.
Yeah.
I need to go next actually.
Yeah.
My favorite samurai game. Ooh, that's honestly a hard one though, but I might have to say Ghost of Tsushima.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I would have picked Nia though, but something about Ghost it hit very very differently. Because not only they went with a more historic accuracy type thing, but it
Mhm.
also changes a lot of things that we see in the genre or samurai games, you know.
Yeah.
So I will go more in detail about that in later questions, but yeah, I can say Ghost.
I would have said
Yeah.
that, but I didn't want to pick anything too stereotypical to start off with. But it's fine.
Yeah,
It's
my favorite
definitely
ninja
mine.
game.
Mhm.
This actually might come to a surprise for a lot of people here, but I'm actually thinking Sekiro might be one of my favorite ninja shinobi type games.
I
Really?
think you didn't say Ninja
Yeah.
Gaiden utterly shocks me.
Hey, maybe it's it. Don't pick the obvious.
That is fair.
Yeah, I
I'm-
wasn't pick Ninja Gaiden though, but I've been playing a lot of Sekiro and like, yeah, I've been vibing with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like the polar opposite. Like I like Sekiro's story. I just don't like its combat.
I like the ideas it has, but yeah, I don't like the Dance Dance Revolution style combat. I'm just not into it.
That's the thing that it resonated to me though. Is like it's all like really skill dependent and patience. Like it's literally a rhythm game, but it's a rhythm game that you can either control or it will fuck you over, you know?
Yeah,
Now, of
I-
course, the
I
biggest
love
elephant in
that
the room
game.
is the Soulsborne elements, which I will give it a huge L and down because I think that was not necessary. But overall, though, I think the game was honestly well crafted in its mechanics. It's all comes down to can you top the your enemy with the mechanics at hand, and yeah, like it does a good job in making you feel like a badass, but also in return make you feel like a bitch if you fuck up.
I do. I really like that game's like overall movement. That is one thing that I can absolutely give it credit for because like you have a lot of options in terms of movement in that game.
A little intimidating, honestly, especially the amount of things are mapped to one button. It's like Jesus Christ, guys, like simplify it a little bit.
Yeah. So I think we're good on on this one, unless if anybody else wants to bring up something before we move on.
I'm good.
Yes,
I
give me
think
one.
I'm good.
Okay, so Brandon, you want to read off number 2?
Oh, okay. As a follow-up question, what was the thing that stood out to you the most from your favorite Ninja Samurai game? Gameplay mechanics, characters, setting, lore, etc., etc.
Ooh, okay.
For me, I will say for Ghost, it will definitely be the setting and the like the characters
Mm,
because I don't know, like the way they were just written is like it was just right, you know. But I don't know, like it just hit right. It was just written notes at the time, especially after one disappointing game that came out earlier that year. But for Sekiro, honestly, it would be just the gameplay. I love the gameplay loop, even with its frustrations.
Mm.
yeah. For me, when like talking about like Onimusha, what really kind of sold me on that series was just I had never seen anything like set in like Japanese history or anything like that. It was such a new experience for me at the time because I was like when both Onimusha 1 and Devil May Cry 1 came out, I was like about like 4 or 5 years old. But I, eventually had seen those games as I was getting a little bit older. Not by much, but just like 1 or 2 years older. And I absolutely fell in love with that series because it was just so different.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know like some of you all who've played the original like PS2 release or even the original Xbox release will know like that original soundtrack is just so amazing
Yeah.
for the first game. It's a shame that it had to get changed,
Mhm.
but unfortunately, frauds be damned.
Interestingly, if you play Onimusha Tactics, there's a pretty faithful rendition on the title screen of that like Onimusha title track. It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I barely played Tactics, so like my knowledge on Tactics is very vague. Tactics and Blade Warriors, those are the two that I've like barely played.
Yeah, I'm playing
And
through
then
Tactics right now for the first time.
Ooh, okay.
Blade
I know that-
Warriors. Blade Warriors is something.
That game is fun but fucking annoying because the AI can cheap you.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I will say this now: do the obvious and master Ishins and whatnot because those would be your best friends.
Oh, so there are actual but that's what
Yeah,
blew me
yeah.
away about Tactics is there's Easons in the strategy RPG. It's dope.
Yeah, like they did a really good job converting the usual playstyle of Onimusha into a Smash clone, and yeah, it's quite impressive what they could do. Ishins especially is a must. I cannot stress that enough. You have to learn master the Ishins.
That's dope. All right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I do know the one thing about Tactics is they have that as we're getting sidetracked and talking about Onimusha, they had this one character which I thought was really cool because I'm like super into the lore of Onimusha. And Tactics, despite not being necessarily a canon game as far as I'm aware, they had this really cool idea of having your main protagonist kind of like Jubei Yagyu in the second game, who's half human, half Oni. That's also the case in with Onimaru and his sister, as far as I remember. But then you also have this other character who's half human, half Genma, and I just thought that was really cool because like they didn't really explore that in the mainline series.
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
And I was always kind of wondering, like, I wonder if they'd ever try to do that if they ever do an Onimusha 4 in the future. So, but for me, Onimusha is like I love everything about it, from the characters, the gameplay mechanics, the setting, the lore. It's my baby.
Yeah.
So like,
well, I think what's interesting about it is it's not so. I mean, like it's weird. So I'm obsessed with Japanese culture, but I'm a big like contemporary Japanese culture guy. I'm really interested in modern stuff. So I've never been super on board with the ancient Japan stuff. And it never really appealed to me as much. But what did appeal to me about Onimusha is the Japanese like obsession with making very strict, accurate period pieces, and then throwing in these crazy like high fantasy elements. It's like
Yeah.
with the U.S. it'd be the old West would be our kind of analog, and you have games like Red Dead Redemption, which works of fiction, but the point is to stay pretty accurate to what existed back then. Whereas like if the Japanese were going to take a swing at that, they would have people summoning the devil in the middle of the town or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they would add those fantasy elements that kind of just offset the reality of it and works together perfectly.
Demons.
Actually, kind of going off of that point, and since I was just talking about the Way of the Samurai series, there's that one spin-off in that series called Samurai Western, which is literally the whole plot of that game is there's a samurai coming in from 1800s Japan to the Americas in the Wild West to look for his brother to bring back home so he could literally commit seppuku in front of his parents. He literally just straight up goes to his brother in a saloon and he's like, "Come back home so you could commit seppuku in front of our parents."
The PS2 is the
That is
greatest game console.
Divergence a little bit.
But yeah, I guess just on a side note before I let the next person go, I am a huge sucker for the Musou games, and I really get into the like stories for those. I know that's kind of weird because like Musou games you typically look at and they're like a lot of people don't necessarily care for them because they're very repetitive, but I really get into like the fictional stories that they kind of tell for some of these characters. Like, what if Nobunaga never got like assassinated during the Honoji incident, or like, what if like certain other characters like lived longer than what they actually did, or if they succeeded in their conquests. Like, I don't know, I really dig that.
I was watching that Netflix show, something like Battle for Ragnarok or Battle on Ragnarok, something like that. And Lu Bu was in it. And I guess that's an actual, like, person from Chinese history and not just something that was made up in Musou. I didn't know that.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of segueing into what I wanted to say, I think what really drew me in with the Ganbare Goemon games was definitely the characters and the setting, and just kind of the overall sort of like anime aesthetic it gives to to feudal era Japan. And this was something that I actually didn't know about replaying the N64 title Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. Like, I didn't realize that a lot of the areas that you travel in, of course, they're fictionalized versions, but they are actually real areas in Japan. I didn't know that for the longest time. So I thought that was really cool that they were able to make like a super condensed version of Japan, because obviously it's the N64, the system is super limited in terms of what it can offer. So they're not going to be able to make like a Ghost of Tsushima style game with this huge expansive map on the 64. But it was just really interesting to find that out, that that for the longest time I didn't know that. So and that's what really sucks, especially now, is because it's like, if they were to make a game of that series now, they have the technology to probably add the entirety of Japan, and I think that would be really cool. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, there's really not a lot of games that, at least in an open world concept, kind of like what would be a Ganbare Goemon game, that allow you to like transverse the entirety of Japan, right?
No.
We got Dancing Warriors 9? Question mark?
No.
Yeah.
Well, and Dynasty Warriors being set in China, but yeah, no, it's there's nothing out there as far as like, hey, you can go out of your way and travel like from one end of Japan to the other. The closest thing we have as far as like doing anything like that is like the Nobunaga's Ambition series. There's a couple of like more when I was looking on PlayStation Network, there was a couple of more like retro style real-time strategy games that kind of revolve around like conquering Japan as well. And also the Samurai Warriors Empire series, where they kind of just let you conquer all of Japan and grow your grow your empire, but nothing nothing in the sense of like, hey, if I just want to become a samurai, I just literally fight everybody in like duels or whatever, kind of like Musashi or something, Like, you can't do it.
All right, anyone else?
Going once,
Well,
going twice.
Well, let's see. In my case with the Bushido blade, ironically enough, what drew me in more into that game was, ironically at first, the one thing that put me off of it, and that was for its main single player story mode. It had a code of honor system where if you did anything dishonorable in that fight, even as much as going as far as like attacking your opponent as soon as they tried to introduce themselves or attacking them from the back, if you got to a certain point in the game, it would just end before you could actually finish it with this like black text, basically in a roundabout way saying, "You are not a good person."
Yeah, that was
And
cool because you could like throw sand in people's eyes and stuff, but then the game looked down on you for it.
Yeah, and what even made it more ironic was the first time you actually get past that point, the opponent you end up fighting is a guy with a gun who can shoot you as soon as you like do your intro. So it's like, do I still have to follow this code of honor at that point? And surely enough,
Yeah.
the game still punishes you for it. So it's more of like just trying to embrace like the way these guys are supposed to fight, even though the setting for the game wasn't actually like in like past times. This was taking place in the modern day, so it was kind of interesting to see like how like these guys, like, even though they were supposed to be assassins, like they had this sort of code of honor, and it kind of just drew me more into the lore, which was all the more reason why when I got to play the sequel, they didn't really have a lot of that. It was just more of a straight and forward fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
Although you could still die in a couple of hits, it's just you didn't really have that elaborate effect for story mode.
Yeah, that's it's kind of a similar thing with the way of the Samurai series as well. You could kind of be a completely dishonorable cunt and do like the most vile shit, or you can go on and be a hero.
Anyone else?
Yep.
James?
This is for mechanics, right?
Yeah,
Anything that stood out to you that makes the game your favorite?
I guess the exploration and the beat 'em up style, it's like this weird 3D beat 'em up explorative type game. So I guess IDOS was experimenting at the time because I think all they made was Tomb Raider at that point, so they were trying to branch out. Unfortunately, the story is very minimal, so I can't say that. But I would say just the exploration and the way the levels were designed were very interesting, and the fact that you're alone the whole game, there's no help, it's just you. That's about it. It's it's a very simplistic game, so there's not too much to say on it.
Anybody else?
To bring up something else important about that game, James.
What? That's fucking hard.
Really?
It's a very video game, as in it starts easy and gets ridiculous by the end of it.
Didn't that game have sort of like a top-down, kind of like the 3D Gauntlet game sort of perspective? Am I thinking of the right one?
The camera shifts a lot, but I wouldn't say it's quite top-down. It has like a fixed angle for certain areas.
I remember seeing the advertisements in game magazines all the time back in the day.
Yeah, they always pick the parts where the camera's pulled out. Usually if you're fighting, they always try to keep the camera pulled out, but
I need to play that, honestly.
Oh, it's good. I think it's a hidden gem for the PS1. It's like the camera angles, it's like it's fixed, but it still follows you type of thing.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Brandon, did you want to, or I think you already went, right?
Yes, I did, I think. Wait, hold on. Yeah, I did.
You did? Okay, cool. Jared, you want to read off number 3?
All right, sure. Let's see. There's various types of samurai games that have been released over the decades. The older games tend to be arcade-style platformers and beat-em-ups along with RTS games, while modern games now delve into stealth action, adventure, hack-and-slash genres. What is your opinion on this? I did a pretty good job of reading that, if I do say so myself. You know what? So I will say this. Older games tend to be like arcade-style platformers, beat-em-ups, stuff like that. I think a majority of games in general, probably from, let's say, the SNES and below generations, were relatively beat-em-ups and arcade-style games because we were just kind of evolving out of that style of game development. So I feel like when you think of an icon like a ninja or a samurai, your first thought is, okay, combat. And our framework for what video game combat was, either a side scroller or a beat 'em up. That kind of makes sense.
Right. Oh, like, I think it's kind of interesting how we've kind of talking about like those older like arcade games, because like Ninja Gaiden, for example, right, started off as a side-scrolling series, and then it became a hack and slash series with the reboot.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting how far we've come. Like I think even Shinobi, that series was also started off as a side-scrolling series, and then it had
Really?
the modern
Yep.
PS2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
started like an
I
arcade
never
side
heard of the
scroller.
original.
Mhm.
I only know of the PS2 game.
Hell, the last game was a remake of the first game, I believe, or a new game altogether, but starring I believe the original Shinobi.
It's another
Yeah, it
game
was
I really like, but I'm just not good at it.
Yeah.
so it was like the Shinobi that's on 3DS is a remake of the first one, as far as I'm
Yeah.
aware. But what
Yeah.
they did was to try to make, because in the original it was just you're a generic looking Shinobi with like white and red clothing. So what they did was to make it stand out a little bit more, they changed the armor in the remake to look more like Hatsuma from the Shinobi PS2 game. So that way there was more of a consistent look for the series.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
is
I
kind of
thought it
cool. I
was,
like that armor.
I thought it was Hasuma
Yeah.
for years though, until Daybreaker, clarified my ignorance on that. Which thank you,
Yeah.
Daybreaker, for that.
No worries, man.
Yeah. But yeah, like games like that, it is interesting to see how they, it was initially like beat 'em up or um real-time strategy stuff or arcade style side scrollers and stuff like that. And now where we kind of get into like stealth games or action adventure games or choose your own adventure games. It's a lot of different things that you could do with that kind of setting, I think. And I think a lot of developers kind of realize that you can do a lot more than just the typical, side scroller or arcade beat 'em up or real time strategy game.
Yeah, for sure. You know what I think would lend itself really well to the actual like concept of being a ninja would be something along the lines of The Last of Us, where it's more stealth driven, and if you do get into a fight, you're not necessarily guaranteed to win it, and you kind of procure what you need on site, right? So you come across something, you put together a makeshift weapon or something like that. That kind of feels a little more genuine to what a ninja would be in reality to me.
Which Last of Us in particular, the first or second one? Because in two, way the game has been like restructured a little bit, you actually are more guaranteed at least to win a fight if you have the right gear. Whereas two, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, one, it's not the case where you're gonna get clapped, pretty easily.
Okay, so that's good to know because I thought it was just me when I was playing part. I only got halfway through part 2, and I was like, yeah, it seems a little more actiony to me. Maybe it's just me.
No. I was there. I stopped playing halfway through, but yeah, I know that.
At
Like,
least it wasn't just me. That's good to know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, actually, kind of thinking about that from if we're talking like ninjas, right? So like, um, I'm a history nerd, so one of the like interesting things about Shinobi, like real life Shinobi, is that the whole idea of like if you got caught, it was basically you better kill everybody that saw you or die trying. Like there was no like you didn't just fail. Like death was your only option if you failed. So I think like and concept for a game like that, I think that'd be kind of cool because it's like you
Oh yeah.
constantly have to think about like being very stealthy. I guess that could kind of take some aspects from like the Splinter Cell series as well, with like making um making slight movement would like increase the amount of sound that you're making, but then at the same time you could also hear everybody else like moving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's very much like the older Tenchu games.
Mm.
I mean, those games outside of the boss fights, they generally insist on stealth.
So are you saying you would kind of want to see something similar to like a rogue, where the roguelite, is that what the genre is called? Roguelike, sorry. So you would like to see like a roguelike ninja game where if your character dies, like you have to be you start over as a new character.
That sounds more fitting for a samurai game, honestly.
And
I
now we
mean,
got a
technically, that's
conversation
already being
going.
done with the new Getsuga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I think,
Mhm.
actually, you know what? Save that thought for the next one, actually, because that could apply to the whole conversation at hand. As far as like what drama, uncommon or common dramas you wouldn't see more of for each thing. Yeah. Because,
Yeah,
oh
for
Lord,
sure.
that's an interesting thought you brought up.
Uh, so, and then, I guess we look at like samurai games, right? Samurai games, we're typically thinking like hack and slash or action adventure, which really you can't go wrong with the samurai game. But I thought it was very interesting that like we had games like Neo, which decided, hey, we're gonna start going into like a RPG style territory, action RPG territory, or in the case of Onimusha, it's at least the first one. It's kind of like a blend of survival horror and action adventure, which really kind of bolstered its uniqueness.
Mhm.
Did anybody else want to go on this one, or?
No, you guys kind of said most of it.
Yeah. I think I'll
It's
just
kind of really hard
be
to
more.
add on to this one, mainly because there's really not much you can fit in with other genres with either of those archetypes.
Hmm.
I do think I'd just like to comment that it seems almost kind of a natural progression when it comes to how the games of the past in this genre for like ninja and samurai were to how they are now, especially because the technology allows for such more vast experiences to be made. So there's obviously not going to be the same appeal for a AAA developed game like Ghost of Tsushima to be an arcade beat 'em up where it's, oh, you play this one stage and then go on to the next one. People are going to want something a little bit more in depth. I feel like obviously there's still a place for the retro inspired games. Just look at the indie market. There's a dime a dozen for those. But when it comes to seeing new light breathed into these type of genres, I think people want something more akin to like Ghost of Tsushima, where it's like you get to transverse, a huge open world and get to partake in a world that you may not have otherwise gotten to see, if the technology hadn't advanced to the point that it has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely keep that in the back of your mind because there is a question that kind of revolves around that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one, but well, it's gonna come up in a later question. But since we're all good here, Sing, do you want to read off number 4?
Let's see here. What uncommon genres, for example, RPG, stealth, Soulborne, etc., would you like to see for ninja and samurai? And what common genres, such as hack and slash, action, adventure, platformers, etc., would you like to see more of? You only pick one for both ninja and samurai.
Ooh.
Okay, can I go first on this one real quick? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna break the rule set there for one sec. I'm actually gonna have one that applies to both, potentially apply to both, and that would be Metroidvania actually.
Ooh, good
Especially
call.
for the ninja side. I think
Yeah.
you know a Metroidvania style game would work wonders for the ninja side, especially. But I think it would work for both.
Yeah,
Did
that
any of
most
you
recent
guys?
Strider game was like that.
Yes,
It
yes.
I was actually going to ask, did any of you guys play either the Messenger or Cyber Shadow?
No,
I
I
played
have
a
I
little
both
bit
of
of the
them
haven't
as
I
Messenger.
well.
have
the
heard of those
Messenger,
games actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I
Messenger
have.
was actually a fun game.
I have the Messenger, and I have gotten confirmation that Cyber Shadow is really, really good. Also, Katana Zero. I don't know if anybody played Katana Zero, but I've heard
I heard of
that's
it.
really good too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cyber
I-
Shadow
I
was,
played.
from what I played of it so far, is definitely a fun one, but also quite difficult.
Yeah, I played a little bit of the Messenger before, just to record footage for this podcast, and I thought it was really fun for what I played. I'm not used to like the classic style Ninja Gaiden games. I'd like to give them a shot one day. So it was a very interesting experience for me at least because it's out of my comfort zone. Um, so, but yeah, I think that's a very interesting suggestion, having a Metroidvania style ninja game.
Just more
I was
Metroidvania
a-
games in general, really.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I was actually thinking, so we don't really have anything like Onimusha. I mean, I guess you could kind of look at Neo, but Neo's more of an action.
That's more Ninja
RPG.
Gaiden based,
Yeah.
really.
It's Samurai Gaiden with some Soulsborne mixed into it. But what I was thinking is like having a legitimate like successor to Onimusha that's, you know, a hack and slash survival horror style game, or just hack and slash horror game, you know?
You know I'm down with that.
Yeah, because
So basically, only Musha 1, but more emphasis on the horror.
yeah, maybe like, and you know, you don't necessarily have to be a samurai. You could probably be a ninja, and you know, definitely an emphasis on having like magical weapons and stuff like that, but still weapons that kind of feel like would make sense in that setting. Because like I said, we don't really get anything like Onimusha. It's very much a one of a kind. So the fact that
Absolutely, yeah.
you know, like when I think about it, like you look, we were just talking about the indie market, for example, right? We see a lot of Resident Evil successors, and we're starting to see a little bit more of like Dino Crisis successors now coming around.
We're seeing less first person, thankfully, but yeah.
Yeah, but no Onimusha successors, and that genuinely hurts me.
No, well, you know,
Like-
people tend to be
like-
of this opinion that the more survival horror style games are just antiquated, and I don't understand that, because we still have popular AAA platformers, which you could easily, you know, argue predates survival horror by a few decades, but for some reason that gameplay style isn't antiquated. But controlling a character in a survival horror game somehow has become this thing that no one can do anymore. And when you bring it up, people genuinely, I mean, speaking from experience, my comment section, if I make a comment about, let's say, a more modern style Resident Evil over the shoulder game, where I say something like, oh, I wish this was a survival horror title, it's always like, oh, it's such an old style, like no one does it anymore. I don't understand why. I really don't get it. I think I'm too biased to see the other side of the argument on this one.
I think it's more of the ignorant on the masses because no, I'm almost guarantee you those people are like the more common gamer that don't go outside their comfort zone or look deeper into the industry, because we do see a lot of survival based or a lot of horror based games out there. It's just they're not mainstream games.
Yeah. And I was gonna also bring up too really quick that you can kind of look at like turn-based RPGs in the same light, because they're kind of in that same boat of like, we have a bunch of new like popular turn-based RPGs. Like we just had Yakuza 7, which I don't particularly think needed to be a Yakuza game, but it, you know, I don't think it's necessarily a bad game per se.
You know, my argument there would be is not so much that it didn't need to be a Yakuza game, because then we have like Yakuza Dead Souls and then the old like Meiji era Yakuza games. It just needed to be a spin-off.
Yeah, but like they did it in a way where it was like, I know this is really unrelated. I guess we could talk about Yakuza and talk about the spin-offs in just a moment, but like, at least in that regard, like we had that weird naming scheme where in Japan it's still considered seven, but then over here in the West it's considered a spin-off, which is like, I know what you're doing, Sega. Like Capcom did the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's not considered a spin-off. It is considered a next entry though, but they market it as a new beginning, kind of like how God of War did it. But unlike God of War, it actually has a subtitle.
Yeah. So, but speaking of Yakuza, Kenzen and Ishin, fantastic games. I've only played a little bit of Kenzen, and I've played the demo for Ishin, and they're just really fun hack and slash games.
Speaking of Kenzen, have anybody actually played the Kenzen series, the real-time strategy games for the PS2?
Never.
No.
I tried once, not knowing, because like the cover drew me in. I didn't realize it was on RTS. I was like, oh, cool samurai dude on the front of the cover. So obviously it's a samurai game. Like I thought it was something like a Musou. And then I get in and I'm like, oh, this is RTS. This is not my forte. Like I'm very particular about real-time strategy.
You mean Kessen?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember they did something with that game. It was like one of those games where if you had save data of like one of the Samurai Warriors games, you would unlock like a character early or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man. I remember back in the day when you used to have features like that, like game saves would unlock certain, like Legend of Mana. If you have an FF7 game save, you get a chocobo. That's cool as shit, man. I miss that.
Right.
Oh,
like I also miss
the
I miss the data flag system from the dot hack games. I thought that was a really, really cool system. So it's like all the progress you made for your character and everything in the first game, it's like, oh, it goes all on to the second game. Like super cool.
Basically, dot hack is literally like one whole game just broken in different parts. So like that was just like the smartest idea for them to like carry over your progress from each entry until the final.
For sure.
Well, until the last PU game. So like, that was really smart though. I wish more games did that, but
and it's totally still doable. I mean, we still save all of our stuff on hard drives. You could just do a quick, scrub of the hard drive and find something related.
Yeah, and we also have like, if you look at games that have like the support for backwards compatibility on like for PS4 and PS5 and Xbox One and Series X, a lot of these, well, some of these games at least, have save data transfer from just going from a different version. So I don't feel like it would be impossible to do per se.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So did anybody else want to talk about this or
Daybreaker. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I actually wanted to say that I would like to see a more ninja centric game like Ghost of Tsushima, but it's more based on ninjas and there's the stealth elements and more open world, so you can go across the land. And I think even it would be kind of a cool thing because I know that ninjas like to operate at night. So I thought that that'd actually be kind of a cool thing to like implement like a day to night system where it's more beneficial to do things at night than it is during the day.
So Attention Z basically, but I think that game's mostly at night, right? So...
Yeah, and that was more like mission based because you select your missions from like a center hub, if I remember right.
Yeah,
I never finished it, but I really liked it.
Yeah, that game kind of kicked my ass though, but I want to go back and conquer it one day. Yeah, that's like good.
It kind of sounds like MGS5 in a way.
Yeah,
like MGS5, like you could
taking the good gameplay from MGS5.
Yeah, and actually, you could the way you can make this a little bit more interesting too, right? Is MGS5, they did it where like depending on what you did in the game, the enemies would adapt. So like if you kept doing missions at night, at least in that game, enemies would start wearing night vision goggles, or if you started like doing more headshots, they would start wearing like helmets and stuff like that. Or
that's pretty dope.
Yeah, like so you could like do it like let's say that you you go like do a mission in a particular area and you fail it and then try to redo it, like the security or something starts bumping up, so it gets progressively harder the more you fail or something. That would actually be really cool. I'd like that.
Yeah, and they like, you know, recognize certain paths and patterns you take. Like if you start going through like a certain area a lot, they'll be like, okay, well, we seem to get a lot of break-ins from this part of the area, so let's bump up security in this part of the map, right? Or you know, we seem to be getting killed a lot by bows and arrows, so why don't we start placing like archers or like certain like provisions to prevent
Wear a helmet.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd be down.
Yeah,
with that.
yeah, exactly.
If we're talking like an MGS5 style thing, then they put on helmets whenever they got shot in the head. So I would assume it would be the same logic.
Yeah.
But then what if you did something like where if you end up putting more resources on this one spot, the game would end up compensating for that by leaving this other spot like unguarded as much, just to keep it so that a bit more realistic, I guess.
I could see that too. Yeah, that'd actually be really cool.
Like
Man.
five tried to counter the play style you did the most, so it wouldn't try to protect itself in other areas as much. So it could probably still work that way.
You know what's
Man, we're
weird
just
about
Showing
that?
out ideas right now. But go ahead. Sorry.
I never knew any of that shit went on in MGS5. I kept playing the same way, and I never noticed any difference in difficulty at all.
Yeah.
I could have sworn like if you were trying to gung ho it too, I think the enemies would start wearing like heavier body armor.
No,
or
I mean that
something
sounds
that.
like a Kojima idea too. Like that flat out. If it's not, that should be in the game for sure. It's just that's how oblivious I am when I'm playing a video. I'm so dropped into that experience that I don't even notice when it changes. I'm just responding like as it does.
Yeah. And yeah, they would start like carrying higher grade weapons, higher grade body armor and stuff like that. They'd have more security. I think they would start even putting up like cameras and having certain patrols. And
Didn't they also try to counter snipe you if you were trying to play a sniper too much?
They would have sniper units. They'd have claymores out, like all sorts of different stuff. Like the only thing that was cut from the actual game, and I know this is diverging a bit, but I'm going to tie this back into the subject at hand. But they cut the idea of like having like patrol units trying to look for you outside of the base and chasing you down with like guard dogs and stuff like that. And to make this interesting, I think for like, you know, a ninja game or even a samurai game, right? Well, maybe a ninja game would make a little bit more sense, right? It would be interesting to see if they had like samurai trying to hunt you down with like, you know, like specific units, and you know, maybe having them carry out guard dogs or having like other shinobi that are trying to hunt you down and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, put a price on your head. That'd be sick.
Well, actually, hold up, Dom. I'm gonna do you one though. Let's say in a hypothetical Ghost of Tsushima sequel, right? They should probably do something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Aren't they having a new game coming out? Not to sidetrack too hard into that. Like
supposedly
like
it's
Ghost
supposed to be a standalone expansion, I think.
Which
like
I mean, either way, that's not too surprising, you know. Like, I don't know. I mean, it is Sucker Punch. They did that with Infamous as well, right? Where they had
yeah. When Infamous became popular to the first game, they ran with it like immediately.
Yeah, they did that with the standalone expansion for Second Son First Light, and I've heard First Light is actually a lot better of an experience than Second Son. So
I'll say narratively speaking, yes, but gameplay is up to you. But that's all I'll say on that. Are we able to move on, Dom?
Yeah. Well, let's have Dave. Well, I think Daybreaker already read, so let's have James read off number 5.
I haven't read a question, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know why I thought you did.
Jared, I read one off.
Let him
Have you read off number 6.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'll have you read off number 6, I promise.
Wait, am I reading it or is he reading it?
Yeah, you're reading. You read off number 5 and he'll read number 6.
All right. Most feudal Japanese games are commonly set in the mid to late 1500s or early 1600s. However, some games have broken the norm and have time periods set from as early as the 1100s or as late as the 1800s. Do you believe that more games should be set in more non-common time period settings? Example, Ghost of Tsushima, Otogi 1 and 2, and Way of the Samurai series. Who wants to go first?
I think
On it.
I have a very weird niche thing that I enjoy, and it's when you take very historic elements and bring them into a more contemporary setting. So, like a Western where there's also like airships, or, your Final Fantasy VII style where it's a cyberpunk future, but people are still using swords. I'd love to see a contemporary samurai story that takes place in, modern day Tokyo, let's say. And there's a class of society that are allowed to be samurais. Like, oh, fuck, I'm psyching myself up just thinking about it, honestly.
You know what? Really enough, I think there's an anime out there. I forgot what it's called that technically does something like this.
Oh,
where
there
like
has to be, for
ninjas,
sure.
samurai, and shrine mating still exist.
Uh,
Yeah, it's an etchy type anime. I would want to point that out though, but I forgot what it's called.
Hmm.
But yeah, something like that does exist. Just I don't remember the name.
I'm sure, yeah.
We have ninja games that do that, but we never had samurai, which is weird.
You know what? There is one game that I could think of off the top of my head. It's seven. I think it's called Seven Samurai 20XX.
Oh, for the
And it's supposed
PS2, yeah.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be like a retelling of the Kurosawa film,
Yep.
The Seven Samurai. So,
Man, I love
like,
Kurosawa's films; they're amazing.
yeah, so. I mean, it has been done before. It's just not common. Like,
Mhm.
Not with samurai. Ninja, you got like Ninja Gaiden, Strider, Shinobi. You have a lot of those, but for some
Yeah,
reason,
like even-
samurai is not touched on as much.
It's
Yeah,
like super niche.
Yeah, like you even got like obvious examples like Cyber Shadow and even Hagane.
mm,
What was that indie game that got really popular? I think it was indie game, that 2D ninja game.
The Messenger.
Was that it?
That-
Yeah.
that's one
Are
of
you
the more
talking about the
recent ones.
cell shaded ninja game?
Mark of the Ninja. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's
Oh, Mark.
yeah. I think it's made by the
also-
Shank developers.
I believe that game is also in the future, if I'm not mistaken.
Mark of the Ninja. Wait a minute, that's bringing back memories. Hold on.
Yeah, it was on the 360 and PS3, I believe, and before they ported it over to other
Came out
platforms.
Oh,
way
that's
back in
right. That's right.
2012.
Yeah, I know. I remember this.
yeah. I made this question in particular because I was thinking about it from the perspective of like, okay, Ghost of Tsushima is set in like the early 1100s, but then we have things that are really out there. Like most of the Way of the Samurai games are set in the late 1800s, with the exception of Way of the Samurai 3, which kind of follows the typical 1500s, mid 1500s. And
If you want to be real technical too, Neo 2 goes like literally back in time with his with the samurai
Yeah.
stuff. As far as like what 500, 900.
yeah,
Yeah, like
so that's-
really old Japan in that game.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it go like at least in the main game it goes as far as the late 1600s. So it's like or late no mid early
Yeah,
early
well,
1600s,
Neo
right?
1 was, literally the start of the 1600s, and Neo 2 is just a little after the start of the first game.
Yeah.
At least
so
it ends that way.
it's so like I was saying, it's one of those things where I wanted to ask it because we don't really see games like that. Like Way of the Samurai specifically, most of those games they kind of pride themselves on like we're trying to tell more or less the end of the Way of the Samurai in the late 1800s when they were doing the when they were going through the
Meiji Restoration.
period.
Yeah.
Yep. And with Ghost of Tsushima, which is something that they, there really isn't any other game like it where they kind of cover the Mongol invasion of Japan. So it's kind of interesting to see how drastically different and uncommon those time periods are. But like a lot of these games tend to really have an emphasis on like the importance of those time periods, even though like obviously they try to make it really fun and engaging for those games. Like even Otogi, which is kind of like well, those games are based on Japanese folklore at least. They're set in like very interesting time periods as well. I think they're like set between like the 900s and 1100s, something like that. So it's a very interesting concept, I think, and I'd like to see more of it because it's very common, at least for a lot of these types of games, where they're just set in the height of the Sengoku era.
Yeah.
Did anyone else want to go on this?
I just wanted to say that like I'm pretty open to seeing any sort of different time periods than the norm be explored. I think it would be really interesting to have a more diverse pool of different time periods for more modern games.
Yeah.
Yeah, be like Warriors All Stars, baby. Mix them up.
Or Warriors Orochi 3.
The only game I recall, and I think I've seen it from Dom, was what was it, Samurai Western?
Samurai Western was in the 1800s.
But it was in the Wild West, right?
Yeah.
That's
the only
locale.
Oh,
Okay, so there's
Yeah,
a
that-
similar thing
yeah.
to Samurai Western on the PS1 called Rising Zan, which was a
Oh, I
samurai
remember
in the
hearing
West
about it.
type of deal.
Oh, by the way, locales is actually a question later. I forgot to put it in
Oh,
that
is it?
in that section of flow, so I apologize for that. But yeah, that is a later question.
Okay. Yeah.
I actually.
Oh, go on.
I'm sorry. Oh, I just wanted to expand on what I just said. So, have any of you guys seen the movie The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
Who has
stellar,
it? Right?
stellar movie. Honestly, my favorite Tom Cruise movie. I'd actually kind of like to see. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if any game has done this, but I'd like to see a game set in that period where the samurais are being phased out in favor of like a more militarized, firearm centric Japan. So I think that'd actually be a really interesting premise for a game.
Not in the scale, but definitely in the subject matter. Way of the Samurais 1, 2, and 4 are set
Okay.
in those periods. Yeah.
Okay.
4 in particular really pushes it because they have Europeans, I think, coming over in that game, and they're like, introducing like their firearms and like, trading goods and stuff like that, and they're like, there's like a group of samurai that like are really opposed to it in that game. In the first Way of the Samurai game, it's very subtle, and you don't necessarily see it until like, you see like the industrialization with like trains and stuff like that. There's like a whole train track section in that game, but like you don't really see it until like mid to like late game, I would say. And I think that's kind of the same case with Way of the Samurai 2. It's kind of like mid to late game.
Okay.
It's really the only example that I could think of as far as that kind of style, but not in the sense of like actually playing as or playing in the what is it, the Boshin Wars, I think it was called, if I remember right. I'm not too familiar with that.
Neither am I.
Yeah.
So it'd definitely be I'd definitely like to see it, is what I'm trying to say. Anybody else want to go on this one, or are we good to move on to number 6?
I'm good to move on.
Alrighty. Daybreaker, you want to read off number 6?
Sure. A lot of samurai and ninja games use common historical figures like Nobunaga Oda, for example. Should games have more uncommon figures like the Black Samurai Yasuke or the 16th century Iga leader Fujibashi, sorry if I'm butchering this, Nagato, if he's interesting enough. Fujibayashi. I'm sorry. God,
Yeah.
I'm fucking horrible at pronunciations. Just watch any of my streams.
I messed
If
it
it
up.
involves, if it involves any Japanese name, I'm like, But
I said Fubayashi, so don't feel bad.
but to answer that from my perspective, I think it'd actually be really cool to see more non-norm historical figures be mentioned. But I'd also like to say, can we get another Musashi title? That's not bad.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Because the PS2 one was not that great.
Yeah.
Hey, if Capcom wants some free real estate, I will legit set out a plan for a Musashi Onimusha game.
Oh god.
I will legit give them the outline for it because I have it living real estate free in my mind every day. So, Capcom, if you're watching this, hit me up.
I've always been a fan of like that fish out of water aesthetic. You know, you take a samurai, put him in the modern age or something like that. So I would be fine. You know, for example, I was just rewatching Baki, and then the fact that Muhammad Ali's son is like a main character. That's amazing. I would love to see that same thing coming across in a samurai game. Like, I don't know. I don't know if these time periods even link up, but Abraham Lincoln being president in, you know, ancient feudal Japan, I would be so on board with that. It's insane.
He's a vampire hunter, so it could work.
There you go. See, we already have it figured out.
We still had no good game about that, but that's a game for another time.
Oh, here's an idea. Okay, like we can take somebody like because they have the Yasuke anime. I still haven't watched it, by the way.
It's okay.
I really need to, but
Yeah, it's alright. Nothing
Mhm.
special.
Yeah.
doing something like having like Yasuke or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And then like kind of or like having characters like or historical figures like William Adams, like we had like in Neo, right? And maybe kind of having like a mix between you know, feudal Japanese and more like Victorian London, kind of
Oh,
like
for
I don't know,
sure.
like more like
Yeah.
Bloodborne almost.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think that would be really cool now that I think about it, because we were just talking about like having a more survival horror-esque samurai game, right? Why not have a blend of the two like locales?
You know, you kind of get a bit of what you're mentioning in that Shimigami Tensei Devil Summoner, where you're sort of towards the tail end of the Meiji Restoration. A lot of Western trends are taking on and stuff. You know, it kind of has that sort of aesthetic of that London style Western fashion and sensibilities in that very Japanese setting. I love that. It's so cool.
Yeah, SMT is something I'm really trying to get into in the future because well, I'm playing through Persona 3, but I have some of the other like SMT games that I bought, and I'm super happy to get them sealed and for a reasonable price. So
Mm.
To kind of expand on what I said, it might be too little too late and maybe a little too niche, but I would love to see a video game based off of the main character from Ninja Scroll, Jubei Kibagami. Like, I think that would be sick just to have a freaking game based on him and following him around,
That'd be
doing
dope.
stuff.
Yeah.
yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I watched Ninja Scroll with some of you guys in here, and I thought it was really interesting. But I don't know too much about Ninja Scroll, so
What was the name of that OVA that was like a continuation of Ninja Scroll?
Ninja Resurrection.
Oh yeah, that's good. You start any anime off with a dude cutting off his own finger to spiritually impregnate a woman, and I'm already on board. You have me. I'm good.
I'm not even gonna ask.
Japan.
Yep.
all right. The only thing that I request of a Ninja Scroll game is that they bring on board the Magoichi Saika voice actor that they had for the first what was it, the first movie? Because
Oh, he was in there?
yeah, the guy that played Magoichi Saika in the first Samurai Warriors was also the voice for Jubei, which is kind of weird because they had he was also the voice of what's his face in Rurouni Kenshin, the dude with the who would always like fight people like with his fists after he lost his sword.
Saito?
No, not
Oh,
Saito.
oh no, you're talking about Sanosuke.
Yeah, Sanosuke.
Yeah, because you threw me off because Saito actually knew how to box, so he did do that in the anime.
Yeah. Well, and they also had in Rurouni Kenshin. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, they should have a Rurouni Kenshin game. That'd be pretty lit.
How have they not? Holy shit. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
They've made them, but we haven't had like a modern localized one that's like a hack and slash or anything like that.
Mm.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Unfortunately.
the Rurouni Kenshin anime, and this voice actor came back for like a couple of voices, but they had the guy that did the voice for Shingen Takeda in the first Samurai Warriors did some of the voices for like I think it was I think there was a character named Raiko in that anime. It's been like almost a year and a half since I watched that anime, so it kind of escapes me. But uh, there were a couple of characters that he voiced in that anime, so I don't know. I feel like there are certain voice actors you just have to have on board, you know, that are like you just associate with some of these samurai games. Did anybody else want to go, or
Not much
Hey,
else
yo,
to
I'm
add
back.
on this
What question
one.
are we on?
we were on number 6 still?
6. Okay. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, we kind of diverged a little bit, but if anybody else wanted to kind of talk about this one.
Yeah, I think
I
I'm
made
good.
that one for you, history buffs. So hopefully that started something good. But
Yeah, yeah, we kind of talked about like going into like later periods and so yeah, it kind of worked out, but I forget who Nikki was talking to me about this, but there was she's bringing up a really interesting historical figure I didn't really hear about before, but there's like a since I was just talking about Magoichi Saika, and she might remember this if she's watching this podcast, but there was a historical figure, female samurai, female, female musketeer. I don't know. Is that the right word? Musket user. Let's just go with that, right?
Oh, okay.
Or
Musketeer is a swordsman, so no.
okay, yeah. So we'll just say
I
musket
say
user for
rifleman. That works too, I
rifleman.
guess.
Yeah,
There we go.
there was a female rifleman that more or less was like Magoichi Saika in the 1500s that doesn't really get talked about a lot. So I think like you could potentially do a really interesting like game about that, especially if you're trying to focus more on um, you know, firearm combat, I
Oh,
guess.
for sure. Yeah, that'd be fun as hell.
And especially like if we're going off of like some of your ideas, Jared, where we kind of throw in like some more steampunk ideas and stuff like that,
Mhm.
or
I
you
mean,
know,
really and
very like
truly,
outlandish ideas.
take any level of technology and bring it into the past, or vice versa, and I'm already happy. You have to really screw that idea up for me not to just enjoy it right on its face, you know?
Mm.
I automatically think of Splinter Cell, but you're just a ninja that has like dual silence pistols or something.
You know,
like
speaking
that.
of, so we have been diverging a lot. I will say this,
Yeah.
and I will go to my grave saying this, that Splinter Cell Conviction is actually super good. I don't care what anybody else says.
Yes, brother.
Oh, I
Brother,
concur. I concur.
Oh,
Yeah.
that feels so good to get off my
It's
chest.
such a John. It's such a like before John Wick type of game to me.
Yeah.
Sam
Oh,
pretty
so,
much becomes that.
I'm actually was going to bring up Splinter Cell in relation to the next question, along with another game. So, but like we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay. Did you want to talk about number 6, Brandon? Because I don't think you really
I thought we were on
mentioned
number
it.
7 now. Oh, honestly, no. I had not much to add other than the fact that I pointed out Yasuke and the other guy.
Hmm.
But I would definitely like to see Yasuke get a little bit more attention for obvious reasons. But
We've only
Yeah.
sadly had him in Neo.
Oh, you know what? I know I'm talking a lot, but there's a
Yeah.
since Daybreaker, you brought this up about having kind of like a game set in a similar setting to the Last Samurai. There was a French officer that came to Japan during that period that decided to join the samurai and become a samurai himself.
Oh, interesting. That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
so maybe they could do a game based on that, but at least if they want to make it not necessarily historically accurate, he would, you know, because the real history of it was that he was driven out of parts of Japan and fled north. But if they wanted to, you know, do like an alternate history where he succeeded with the samurai, I could see it work.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, let's do a number 7 because we kind of went all over the place. But I don't really care. This is fun. So, I'll read off number 7 since I don't think I read off anything for a while. Not many games have a choose your own adventure style. With the popularity of both samurai and ninja games, do you think that there should be more opportunities for games to have this style? I would
The whole
absolutely love it.
time I thought we were actually on number 7. So
No, no. Um, and the reason why I would like it in particular is because well, you have Way of the Samurai, but it's a very niche series. And there's no like Way of the Ninja per se, where you can, be a ninja and like decide to be rogue and do like all this like vile evil shit, or vice versa, where you like retain your honor and serve your lord. So I think there's just a very missed opportunity to kind of just, cater to that kind of niche where you can just do whatever you want and have like different outcomes to a story.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of that style. I've always been I've always liked the mantra of you can make a better story that is one singular thread that people have to play through and in a more linear fashion than to account for all of the possible decisions a player might make. And the only way to really, other than having a team of just 100 people writing your game, the only way to avoid sort of trivializing all the decisions you would make would be to have some of them not really matter. And then at that point, then why are you putting them in the game? So the whole choose your own adventure thing, not that I wouldn't want that to exist, in a perfect world or anything. I would prefer a linear, more straightforward story that's told about a single thing, as opposed to, if I make a decision. For example, my wife loves The Witcher 3, and it's fun watching her play through that. And the whole time I'm just thinking, what if all of that talent and all of those awesome ideas and uniqueness went towards telling a story the writer wanted to tell, and not one that he wanted us to essentially tell with our decisions. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah, I can see that.
to actually sort of counterpoint that, obviously everyone here knows Sucker Punch is because we're talking about your game recently, right?
Yeah.
Now I know I saw Dom mention that Ghost of Tsushima is a choose your own adventure type thing, which I strongly disagree with because none of your actions changes the outcome of the narrative at hand. You could be a ghost or ninja, or be a
I'll elaborate on that in a moment, but yeah, go on.
yeah. So like, regardless of what you do, the outcome's going to remain the same, even if you take into the side quest into account. Doing the side quest before or after won't change the influence of the narrative at the greater scheme of things. Whereas, say, take Infamous, that's more definitely a choose your adventure type thing. Whereas you be a good guy or a bad guy, but your actions do have consequences in the grand scheme of things. Whereas how the world treats you or how certain characters would treat you throughout the story. So like that's something that Ghost was missing, which was one of my critiques though, because I feel like that was a missed opportunity because you do see the conflict between Jin Sakai and his uncle about being the Ghost versus being an honorable samurai. So I think it would have been neat to like have the Ghost system or the honor samurai system for you to influence what you get at throughout the game. Because let's say if you go straight samurai, fight all the battles straight up, right? Certain cutscenes involving like Kodo Khan, I forgot what his name is, and the uncle will still say the same about Jin doing some unsavory methods that samurais wouldn't normally do.
Yeah. Yeah, I like I said, I'll elaborate on it because it's technically in question number 8. But I was definitely thinking it was kind of interesting to, that we don't necessarily have games where like you can basically make your own story per se.
I think it's just a thing of it takes a lot of talent to make it work well.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
That's why you don't see that many. It takes a lot of skilled writing.
Absolutely, and a lot of like sort of what's the word, like focus testing essentially. Okay, so what's the largest group of my player base going to think about this decision, or you know what I mean, like that. It takes a whole lot of that shit, and that's I don't think
Telltale technically does it with like I think The Walking Dead season 1 in particular, because that's one I played the most.
Mm-hmm.
They do have like a graph or showing what decisions people did,
Yeah.
and you could be like the outlier, you could be the common, or
Mhm.
literally be neutral as possible because some people could be like 49, 51% or 50-50, that kind of
Right.
deal.
Yeah. Interesting. You should pull that up because I just totally contradicting what I just said. I actually love the Walking Dead Telltale games. So
I love season 1 a lot, though. I can't speak the same for the later seasons, though. But
I really enjoyed season 2, but it doesn't really compare to the gut wrenching end of season 1 for sure.
oh yeah, that's definitely a perfect example of your choices don't matter at the end, sadly. But that's a completely different story.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did
yeah.
anyone go on this? Go for this question, or
I don't think I really have any much to add, honestly. I think you guys covered it all pretty much.
Yeah, I feel
Okay.
like if I tried to answer it, it'd end up going into question 8 anyway.
okay? Do you want to read off number 8 then, Sing?
Sure. Ghost of Tsushima is a good example of picking your playstyle as either samurai or as a ninja, Ghost as it's called in the game. Should more games let the players have more freedom with multi-play styles, as Ghost did? Extra note. Make sure I'm reading this right here because it's spelt wrong.
Yeah, I know.
Sekiro-
I didn't feel like correcting it.
Sekiro also has a picking your playstyle system via the shinobi tools and ninja arts.
Actually, I want to go first in this though. This is not necessarily related to the like the things we're here, but even like Batman, the Arkham games have that system where you could go in combat where you're not forced to, of course, or do the Predator styles. But also the Splinter Cell games, particularly Blacklist, you have 3 play styles. You have Assault, you have Ghost, ironically enough, and you have Panther, which is a mixture of both, pretty much lethal stealth. So just keep that in your mind when you're like, of course, answer that question because those are.
Blacklist did that so well that that's how I refer to playstyles in other games that they let you do it. It was just so concise. It just works. I don't know.
Yeah, it's literally the simplest way to put it. If you're like familiar with the series.
Just in general, like you could.
Yeah.
I even for Ghost, you could say like, all right. So I guess you call Assault being a samurai. Obviously, Ghost is the same name, so that would be. Well, actually, no. Ghost is different clarification in Splinter Cell, where you don't touch anybody, no killing, nobody sees you. Panther is you kill everybody, so it's like more like Tenchu, where you kill everybody and nobody sees you.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I feel like
go on.
for this specific topic. Okay, so what I would like to see is something like this organically worked into a video game where you can make those decisions, but it's not necessarily like choosing a class at the beginning or anything like that. You can ghost things and maybe there'll be rewards or incentives that would try to draw you in that direction. Or you could, go all out and do the game's combat, and there would be something that would, a negative that would come from that or whatever. I don't like for things to be gamified where I have meters that let me know how I'm doing, and I would much rather it just organically be worked into the natural flow of the gameplay as opposed to a selectable class or something that I interact with on a video game type of sense.
Yeah, that's what Ghost does a good job at. Like it just drops you in and you choose how to go about it, unless the game like story context was forces you to do that one style, of course, because story reasons. Kind of had to. But and also in contrast, like another game that technically does this is Tomb Raider, the Tomb Raider games. But there's more of a incentive for you to do stealth than just going all in with combat, depending on the context of the story, of course. Because you rewarded more stealth than you are in just going in and blowing dudes' heads off normally. So like that kind of like it's like this like opposite of Ghost of Tsushima in a way where you reward more for doing this particular playstyle that they want you to do as opposed to going in at your own pace.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what you guys are talking about. That's where I was kind of looking at that from when I was originally writing the question. Because more so the way that I think about it is like it would be great if you could just have like because people like ninja games and people also like samurai games. So like, what if you could just have a game where you're technically both, and you could just pick whatever, you could just play however you want per se. Like Ghost of Tsushima is a perfect example of that. But um, I'm also kind of thinking about this from like the perspective of like historical context, right? Like um, there are some samurai that were also believed to be ninjas, so why not just kind of have it where like how you play and how you upgrade your character um, goes to both regardless, regardless of which play style you want to play. But you could basically um, mix and match and blend the play styles to your preference if you want to, kind of be a mix of both or focus on one over the other, et cetera, et cetera. But just, have it feel more natural as opposed to more like, hey, pick your class and just kind of stick with it.
Yeah, sure.
That's kind of how I wanted Neo 2 to be, because one of my critiques with the just brand in general is that I know it's technically samurai guiding by its purposes, right? But you have the options to have ninja stuff and mage stuff, so it would have been neat for like the sequel where you could pick whether you could be a ninja at the core, but also have like the ability to take the experiences from the samurai class and the mage class, and of course vice versa with the mage, right? Instead of just being a samurai at the core throughout the whole game and just taking bits and pieces from the the ninja and the mage side of things.
So
that's what I wanted out of Neo 2, which fortunately we didn't get that, but still.
Did anybody else want to go on number 8, or are we good to move on?
I'm good.
Would have elaborated more on the whole connection between the ninja and the samurai and their origins, but we pretty much already covered that for me.
Yeah, down. We're talking.
Yeah, I mean, well, if we want to be like, I guess, a little bit more technical, because like, in a historical context, technically before Shinobi was referred to as Supa, which is part of the reason, at least like what I like about Neo is like the skills that you learn in the quote unquote ninja skills that are called Supa skills. So it's kind of interesting how they. Yeah, some of the skills are specifically referred to that. Like they have like I think they have a scroll specifically. One of the sneaking scrolls. It's called a Supa scroll, but it literally is supposed to kind of predate Shinobi. So I guess
I do kind of appreciate that nice little attention to detail considering the time period.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I have a side question though. If nobody's got to go, because I just thought of this literally just now, but.
Go for it. Go for it.
Do you guys think that we should have more Ronin type games as well? Because I'm sure you guys know what Ronin is, right?
Masterless samurai.
Yeah. So like, do you guys think that we should have something tailored towards like a Ronin story where he just going against all the samurais, or just not being a lapdog practically?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm fine with that.
We kind of
I've not
have
seen
that
other
with
games.
The Way of the Samurai series, but yeah, that's something we definitely need more of as well.
What did you just call it, the Way of the Ronin then?
Oh, that'd be sick. That's a good idea, honestly.
I have a kind of a weird idea. With being a Ronin, right? What if we just took that idea and kind of blended that with like Berserk, right?
Okay.
You see where I'm going with this, right? So like you have kind of more of like the I guess like the dark tone and setting, and maybe even some of like the like aspects of like the weapons and the characters in a samurai setting, right? Yes, the depressing theme of guts, right? Throw that in there too.
But it's not Yasuke.
Yeah. So like, but then again, just having it more set in like a feudal Japanese setting, right?
Sure.
And you could probably make that work out too with like some of the later time periods, like the 1800s, where things are starting to kind of become a little bit more modern and Western too. So I don't know. I kind of like the idea of that.
I'd be mega down with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like and I guess, well, I guess kind of in a related note, you technically have Sekiro, right, where your main character is missing a limb, but like imagine that as opposed to not as a ninja, but more as a Ronin, right? That would, I guess that would be kind of cool having like a fucking cannon on your arm or whatever, right? Or having like different like prosthetic tools.
Yeah, you don't see that enough, honestly.
Yes, yeah, that's another thing that drew me to Sekiro. It's like they took literally real life shinobi tools and just convert them into literally a prosthetic, which is absurdly out there, but I love it.
Mm.
Like firecrackers on your hands, you got an axe, a spear that could go pretty far, I might add, and whatnot. So like it's pretty nutty. I like it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Joy of video games, letting you do what you want.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna have Jared read off number 9, and then we'll kind of go from there.
All right. Another ghost-related question. GOT is a deep narrative heavy game that broke the norms of honor-bound samurai of its time and Japanese pride. Should more games go against the norm too? And are there other games that did the same? Huh. I don't know that I could think of any off the top of my head.
So really the only series again, and I know we kind of are talking about this a lot, but Way of the Samurai again.
Go to further detail. Be my guess.
Yeah. So with Way of the Samurai in particular, their whole system is based on an honor code. So like, if you start doing like all this negative shit, you start getting a more negative. You start getting like certain story quests and side quests and stuff like that, where like certain characters and certain factions will start trying to hunt you down and kill you because of the things that you've done, and like NPCs will like really hate you or start like being afraid of you because they know that you're like going around and like just killing people for no reason, or like you're getting into a lot of fights and stuff like that. But then alternatively, if you're, like helping out the villagers, or like you're going out of your way to do things to stop like gangs and things of that nature, then your honor is kind of skewed more in your favor if you're trying to be a more honorable samurai.
Yeah, I'd be super. I like the idea of the sort of outcast, right? Like the guy who goes against the grain a little bit. And I think that the Japanese sort of fetishize the idea because, I mean, culturally they spend so much time not making waves that when it comes time to do fiction, they're like, let's make a lot of waves with this one. So, yeah, I like the concept for sure.
Does anybody else want to go?
It's hard to think of an example like that in regards to other games, and not even just like between Samurai Ninja games, but just like any other game in general.
Yeah, but I always tend to like skew towards those type of characters, like someone who, for example, like Moguichi and Onimusha too, someone who has reached the pinnacle of skill as a warrior, but doesn't necessarily, like strut his shit around all the time. He just likes sitting around and smoking his pipe and chilling. You know what I mean? Like, or the typical drunk warrior or something. Someone who just doesn't line up with your typical archetype of like Superman,
Onimusha 2 did that great, actually, now that you bring it up.
Yeah.
Because then those two personalities conflict with Eke and Magoichi.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to go before we move on to the next one?
No, I think you guys covered it.
Alrighty. James, you want to read off number 10?
Number 10, if there's a company you'll like to see make a samurai or a ninja game that hasn't made one before, like Sucker Punch did, for example, with Ghost of Tsushima. Extra note, Sucker Punch has proven that you don't need a Japanese developer to make a nearly historical accurate game or tell a story set in that culture. Should more Western devs make games like Ghost? Yeah. I'd like to see somebody get out of their comfort zone and try it.
Has Team Ninja made one yet?
Proven it.
Team Ninja?
Yeah. Is it Team Ninja who did the DMC reboot, right?
No, that's
No,
Ninja
that
Theory.
No, that's
that's
Ninja Theory.
I
Ninja
feel like
Theory. Okay.
everybody's done that by
Uh,
accident.
Oh, for
I know
sure.
I
Yeah, I would like to see them. It seems ridiculous if they haven't already.
So-
Ninja Theory done it.
So technically they have.
Okay.
Before they were Ninja Theory, they were going under a different name, and they were like,
just add monsters, I believe it was.
yeah, I think they were basically like a subsidiary for like Sony, like very small. And before that, they were just basically a development studio that would fix bugs. But one of their first games was a game called Ninja Party, I think.
Ninja
It's
Party.
like one of those. It was like a really niche game. Hold on, let me look it up.
I would like to say that in terms of a ninja game, since they haven't done one yet, since they have done a technically samurai game, I would love to see Platinum do a ninja game.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I mean, does Ninja? I mean, fuck, here I go. Does Metal Gear Rising technically count?
Ooh,
I mean,
okay.
I would consider him more a samurai because he uses a katana, but that's just
I know, but going by what Ryan is in the series, like they call him a ninja, so I'm like,
that's,
He acts too much like a
okay,
ninja.
Mhm.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Correction. Actually, their very first game was not a ninja game.
Ragdoll Kung Fu was it or
Kung Fu Chaos.
Yes, that was
their
it.
first game. But it's weird because they have a ninja on the cover, so I guess it technically counts, even though it's not a ninja game. So
but I want to go on this. I have two companies in mind, which will sound a little weird. One would be Rocksteady, because I mean, to a technicality, Batman is a ninja if you know the mythos and lore, right? But they nailed the Predator style, which is stealth, altogether, right? So I want them to take their knowledge with the Predator style and just make a stealth-based ninja game with it.
Yeah.
Right? I think they could nail that pretty well. But on a open world scale, this will come as a surprise though, or not, depending on who you ask. But I want Rockstar to do something with the ninja or samurai, because they know how to do a open world pretty well. Just they need to work on their gameplay just a little bit, because they're not the most amazing when it comes to their gameplay loop. But I think they could nail it on a general scale of the game.
It would be
If they
interesting
did it-
to see a game like that running with the Euphoria engine and the weird movement style they have with that engine. That'd be kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
It would definitely be cool to see, but I would have to say that they would really have to rear it back on like terms of like dialogue. It can't just be like GTA where every other freaking character is dropping an F-bomb, because then that would really put me off of the experience.
That would be expected though, because even with their other games that are not GTA related though, well, depending on the game, of course. Even they like say Bully is toned down enough, where it's not all profanity though. It's more like PG profanity, to put it simple. Or with Eleanor, it's appropriate for the time. You do have your cursing though, but they speak like they're into the 1940s. So I think they will be fine as far as like getting the dialogue just right. Because even with the Grand Theft Auto games, like their dialogue is appropriate for the setting and time period of their games. So they'll be fine in that regard.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's see. Anyone else?
I'm drawing blank on Western developers. So.
Yeah, I have a hard time thinking of them.
Well, you don't have to be Western developers in particular, though. But I just want to point out that you don't need an Eastern developer to make, or a Japanese developer to make a game in their culture.
And that's kind of where I'm looking at it. Like, I would definitely like to see another Western developer sort of take the reins of what Ghost of Tsushima showed and do a game set in that style, or set in that area of the world. I just don't know who I would prefer to take that.
Yeah.
Who was the Horizon Zero Dawn made by? Was that
Guerrilla Games?
Guerrilla Games. I could see them doing it. They did pretty good with Horizon. So
I'm actually gonna kind of say something a little bit weird, I guess. I mean, maybe not weird, but like just a little bit different. Instead of looking at a AAA developer, I would want to see more indie devs from the West work on that kind of stuff, because they do, like, there are indie devs that have worked on those types of games, but not to the droves that like at least I see where like a lot of indie games make Metroidvania style games, or they make a lot of survival, like classic survival horror style games, or Doom style successors and stuff like that. I haven't really seen a lot of Western indie devs try to tackle a samurai game or a ninja game for that matter. So I'd like to see more of an upsurge of that.
Well, I could definitely throw an indie studio out. The game bakers who made Fury. I mean, that's kind of sort of samurai-esque because the main character
at
does
least
use a katana.
adjacent, yeah.
So I could definitely see them. I would definitely want to see them do something because like their second game Haven, I absolutely fucking loved it. So I would love to see them do some sort of like Ninja Samurai style game.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, yeah, because like, and I definitely think that the like the potential is there. We're just not, like I said, we're not really seeing it as like a consistent thing where like a lot of like indie devs are doing it. Because the typical thing that we're seeing is like, oh, here's the classic arcade style platformer. Here's the, Resident Evil successor or Silent Hill style successor, right? Or here's the next Doom or what was the other one? What was the other one that was
indie
like
developers are targeting a dead or niche genre, whereas AAA developers are targeting the next big thing. So good
I
point.
think that's also too just mainly because when you make something that, let's say it's like a 16-bit style action platform, like obviously that's going to have a market and that's going to have appeal, that's going to have a draw. So I think a lot of indie developers kind of stick to the safer genres that they know will sell because people like, especially if the mechanics and the story and just everything all around is really good, people will end up buying it. And I think that's kind of why they tend to stray away from more experimental stuff. Like it's honestly kind of amazing bringing up the game bakers again. They made Fury and they made Haven, and those have both been successful. So, and Haven is a complete departure from what Fury established. So they didn't just stick to like one single note in terms of how their games play and everything like that. So there are indie studios that are willing to take risks, but I think a lot of studios realize that the market is going to pull more and be more fluent, more prosperous if they back off nostalgia. And I think that's why some of those like FPS games, the running guns, kind of like Dusk, are so successful, is because there is a market for that old Quake style first person shooter, and so that's it gains notoriety because everybody who played Quake went to go play that and were like, oh my god, this is like the next best thing to the original Quake. So I think that's really what it comes down to, and I wish more indie developers would kind of test the waters more, but I do think it's there might be some that do that just don't take off, like their game doesn't sell or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, for sure. It's if like the latter of that kind of scenario is definitely unfortunate, especially like if it has a lot of potential. Because I mean, we kind of see that also with some of the genres and successors that we were talking about, right? So it's one of those things where I guess I would just really hope that at least in the future we could definitely see some more indies try to take on those risks, or at least at the very least blend that with something that might seem a little bit more safe to them in terms of taking a risk. Because I think when you're not really when everybody's trying to do the same thing, it lacks variety, and you're kind of becoming like the AAA market, where the AAA market also doesn't really want to take risks and doesn't want to try to bring up those things that were not necessarily niche but big at one point, and try to make them as big as some of the stuff that we have now. So
one thing, I'm surprised nobody mentioned Ubisoft. Like, I'm legit surprised. I was waiting for the Ubisoft answer.
Really?
I
So
don't have faith And current Ubisoft.
Oh no, for
Or
sure.
They-
Yeah.
with
I-
how
Now,
the AC's
here-
changed,
here-
I don't think it would go well for me.
Now, here's my stance with Ubisoft right now. I'm not going to completely rule them out as much as I really want to because it's fucking Ubisoft. Where everybody knows what we're dealing with here.
Right.
But of course, you could say it's too little, too late, considering like the past remarks from Ubisoft and what they're doing now. But given the current state of, say, Assassin's Creed, for example, they could do it because with Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, considering that they're historical fiction, fantasy type shit, right? Even with that in mind, they still do their best to incorporate what was appropriate at the time when it comes to their combat into the perspective games. I do think they could definitely nail that aspect in a, say, Japan Assassin's Creed game. Just my worry is that how far would they go with it, and will they still have like the old methods of stealth and whatnot? Because wasn't there like a guy that came out and said like stealth is no longer a factor in our Assassin's Creed game?
Yeah. But this was also the same company where we had a different developer come out and was like, well, fans come up with the most boring ideas like AC Japan or AC Egypt, and stuff like that. So
And ironically, we have Egypt, Greece, and now freaking Scandinavia. So like,
Also,
So, like,
ironic coming from the company that's just nothing but European settings the entire time and calls everybody else's ideas boring.
yeah. and here's the thing with in Assassin's Creed in particular, right? Like, let's just assume it's specifically going to be AC because chances are Ubisoft is going to play it safe with their IPs and whatnot, right? The thing with like AC Japan or like even an AC China, and the reason why I think they don't do it is because of the fact that they know they have to actually innovate the combat. Because there's so many different like styles of martial arts and
effort.
Yeah.
Yeah,
New
and
animation,
Ubisoft is not going to do it. Like they'd
Here's
rather
my other
put.
thing, real quick.
Oh, go
Not
on.
to, sorry
Yeah.
to cut you off on that one.
No,
The
you're
other
good.
thing is their business models would
Yes.
kill it for me. Like, I don't want the time save, all the microtransactions. Like, I know that they're gonna try and do it anyway, but it's like, no. That to me, that kills the mood for the game because I know they're gonna make the game around that shit, and I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst offense is like the recent game Valhalla. Unlike freaking Odyssey, a lot of things they did were actually towards one player in their favor. They backtracked it so hard in Valhalla, where it's almost like you need to spend an extra dollar on just getting stuff. Because like with them adding new stuff into the game, via patches and whatnot, the game itself is not set to have enough of the natural resources you can get normally. So you had a choice but to buy it from the little store thing. That was not an issue.
Character progression was a problem too. They like nerfed the EXP. I'm like, I don't want the game to try and incentivize me to buy it because they made it so slow. Like, I'm just not gonna play the game then.
Yeah, like that little nuances though will definitely break, a game.
Actually, I had one. Has anybody mentioned Santa Monica?
I was going to though, but I wasn't sure how that would be received though, because God of War is like the hot topic these days. But even with that in mind, though, I doubt they will just make a God of War clone. I think they'll be fine with it though. But so they could probably make a good samurai game.
Okay, if they made a game that had more of the philosophy, design-wise, of the older God of Wars, like 3, for example, or something, I think it would be amazing. If it's the new style, I think it would be really boring, but that's just my personal take on it. I'm not a fan of the way the new God of War went. But I say them because they have the potential, because they've done it for years. They've made the older God of Wars, which are great. So they could definitely do it. So that's why I put them on the list. It all depends on what design philosophy they decide to go with.
Yeah. Stuff like this will take time for them to iron out new kinks and whatnot, but most definitely.
Yeah, for sure. But I think we're good on this one, right? So if you guys want to move on to number 11, right?
I actually do have one to add.
Go for it.
I'd like to see
Valve
have their hand in the pot, and they have done archetypes similar to Samurai Ninjas with some characters, but I wanted to see them go all the way with this. Would be Integrates.
integrates.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Oh shit! Hold on. Actually, I got two more. The freaking IO Interactive. I think they could definitely do like a weird blend in type game with ninjas in mind.
Well,
Because
you
you
know
know, because
what?
they did Hitman
Yeah,
and now they're
you're
doing
right.
Yeah.
007.
You're absolutely right with that. Like a Hitman style ninja game where like you just blend in as a regular villager or like gardener or whatever, right? And then you just, like poison somebody's tea or like,
Mm-hmm.
shoot an arrow at their face or something. Yeah,
I
You.
hate you for saying that because now I'm just imagining 47 with like a top knot.
yes. Yes, he's gonna have a chomage. Yes.
Oh, so what those things? I'm pretty sure you're talking about it, right? But the musical instrument you saw that dude play during a Ghost of Tsushima reveal. Imagine 47 with that, but it's actually a blow dart to shoot poison on darts out of him.
Yes.
I feel like
Yes,
someone
we're
probably has done that in history somewhere. An instrument that doubles as a weapon like that.
Oh yeah, it
yeah.
is. It's out there. Like it's actually a real thing, but I just don't know what it's called.
Yeah,
But
I could
also,
definitely see that. Like, it seems like a good idea.
I think
Doo-doo.
the other company is called Avalanche Games. The guys that did the Mordor Middle Earth games in
Mhm.
recent history. They do a good job with their own stuff as well. It's not the main focus compared to, let's say, Batman, for example. But I think they could definitely nail one as well with either Samurai or Ninja.
I always mix them up because they have such similar combat to Rocksteady, so I keep forgetting they're the ones who did Mordor.
Hmm.
But yeah, they could definitely do it. They have stealth down pretty well.
Yeah, they got it. But that's all I can think of off the top of my head.
So we good to move on to number 11?
Yeah.
think so.
Yes.
Okay,
be
Brandon,
good.
you want to read off number 11?
If I assist, are there any locales you want to see used outside of Japan? So honestly, it could be like any country, any freaking state, some anything outside just outside the general location of Japan. We have in mind.
I could see a lot of potential if we had a game like that set in India.
Yeah,
Ooh.
India.
Of course.
I'm not talking.
Honestly, though, shut up.
I mean, I'm not bringing it up just because I'm Indian, but one of the things I always found interesting was having like some sort of crossover between the Sikhs and the samurai, because in terms of their lifestyle, like they weren't so that far removed. They had this like own system with how they were originally formed. Uh, like basically not drawing their own weapons unless they were explicitly going for blood.
Mhm.
That's one example. Don't want to keep it too long, otherwise I go in a religious field. But yeah,
But so similar concepts in
Yeah,
terms
similar
of
concepts.
combat. Okay, yeah.
Also, for me, actually, not India, fuck China, because you remember Assassin's Creed, that movie with Ezio, I forgot what it's called, on top of my head. You had that girl with the little throwing knives and whatnot, and sword combat. I
Hmm.
think like a China setting could actually work as well, because it's not too drastically different from Japan, of course, though, which is over here, but at the same time, the aesthetic would be unique enough for to have a different take on like how to approach things.
Didn't
No,
they
that
do
could-
didn't they do a
What?
spin-off game in China, but it was really bad?
It's not that it was bad. It was
a
a
2D
2.5, yeah,
They
2.5D
didn't-
game with Russia, India, and China.
Ooh, a Russian one
they
would be
lazed-
sweet.
Yeah, they lazed out basically. They didn't make the actual like 3D full AC game, and people got mad about that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm still mad about it.
actually, that kind of makes me think like, if you have a samurai game set in China, right, you can kind of make that like Shenmue in terms of I know Shenmue might be hit or miss for some people, but like
Looking
I
for it.
mean more so
Damn it!
I mean more so like in the sense of like imagine if you had like hand-to-hand combat options as well as melee combat options, and you could blend between like Chinese martial arts and Japanese martial arts.
Fight like a Shaolin.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
look
almost.
for sailors.
So yeah. Look at, yeah, exactly. Look for feudal sailors. But like no really like I could see that working in that kind of sense where like if they wanted to have a maybe like an action adventure game where you blend Chinese martial arts with Japanese martial arts, but it's more Unlike Shenmue where it's more action orientated, I could definitely see it working. I'm going to be a bit of an oddball here, but I would kind of like to see a mix between like um, kind of like Native American like
My people.
cultural like aspects, and like combat and stuff like that mixed in with a Japanese setting. I don't know. I feel like that'd be a very interesting like art style and unique like in terms of like combat and like the types of weapons you could see, especially if they just go for a more like fantasy style game.
I agree because a lot of games based around natives are honestly kind of bad or cheaply made. Like the best one I could think of off the top of my head really is just freaking Assassin's Creed 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too.
Yeah.
I think what I would like to see would be sort of like maybe alt history takes. Like imagine kind of what off the top of my head is thinking like do like old medieval stuff, but instead of like it being knights, be samurai instead. I think that'd be really interesting to see. Like maybe even like you could go into like the fantasy realm of doing like the King Arthur story, but instead of it being knights, and everything, it's samurai and ninja. I think that would actually be really interesting. Also just
a game, but when samurai knights.
Arthur don't know.
But also hear me out. Can we have like a ninja game or like a modern ninja game set in like the freaking outback? Just like because of all the crazy shit that lives out there.
Yeah.
In Australia.
You know what they say? Australia's an MMO.
Only if all the main enemies are kangaroos.
Nah,
fuck that.
I
There
wish
we
it was
go.
only kangaroos. You
There we
want
go.
giant spiders and shit? There you go.
No, fuck it. Ninja kangaroo. There we fucking go.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
We
You need to stop.
This sounds like a PS2 game. Only something that would happen.
This
at that
is
time
a
period.
perfect
Actually-
idea. Yeah, and
No,
then you could hit.
kangaroos should be samurais and the ninjas should be spiders.
Hey, if we can have a ninja kangaroo boxer in Tekken, why can't we have a kangaroo ninja?
Let's go.
Are you
Let's
telling
go.
me the Black Spider Clan returns, Brandon?
Yeah, Rue from
Yes.
Streets of Rage begs to differ.
Oh, man.
Rules of Rage.
Yeah,
Roots of Rage.
we got to be ridiculous with this. Like, you could have like oh, I'm sorry. I hope that didn't peak.
No, you're good.
You could have like I don't know, like just think of a ridiculous looking yokai, right, and just blend it in with like Australian animals.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that works
Oh,
already.
right.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
can
does
see
sound
that.
interesting. All right, you win, Dom.
Like big ass like Oni looking freaking kangaroos or like freaking camel spiders. Oh my god.
Kangaroo
Yeah,
move
or-
over here. Let's go.
Since I was talking about blending,
Bunch of giant hairy
since I was talking about blending like Native American like aspects to Japanese culture, right? One thing that I was kind of interested in learning about is this folktale about a bird called the thunderbird, right? So like imagine like
Under the jaw.
imagine like facing like mythical like birds and like other types of like Native American creatures or whatever, right? That are in folklore, but like with the Japanese twist to it.
That would also be kind of cool. A little bit of a side tangent. Like I would love to see a game kind of like that, like a Shadow of Colossus-esque sort of game where you fight these like larger than life, mythological creatures.
No, yeah, absolutely.
That'd be cool.
Everything in Australia is already mythological at this point.
It really is.
God of War Outback.
We're not talking. If we have any Australian viewers, the IAS, we're not talking shit. We love you guys. I
love
got
you,
friends
man,
out
but
there,
you're
so
Your native
Nature,
land is scary.
Yeah,
Damn,
I mean,
nature,
I live
you
in
scare
Florida, which is like the U.S.'s sort of soft-ass entry-level Australia.
Florida, man. I didn't know you live in Florida, man. Thank you for the jokes.
Oh yeah, no, I genuinely I do have an alligator currently as we speak in the lake that's behind my backyard, like a little small.
Are you
baby.
serious?
Swear to Christ, I'll send you the picture. I swear to God.
See, I don't know. I feel like because you all have like Burmese pythons down there too, right? So like,
Those,
I don't
those
know.
were the thing. For the
Crocs.
longest time, people wanted to buy those, and they couldn't take care of them. They got rid of them, and they flooded the Everglades.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I'm not afraid of snakes, but I don't think I'd want to deal with like a 10-foot long snake that could like overpower me like super
If
easily.
it kill me, stay away from me. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like I'm just like my fight or flight kicks in if
absolutely,
it's something
yeah.
that can kill me. It's like-
Yeah, I don't fuck around. Like, listen, I'm around alligators all the time living here, but I don't get anywhere fucking near them. Absolutely not.
They don't want to be bothered anyway. It's,
most of-
I assume gators are like bees.
You don't bother them, they won't bother you generally.
Gators, generally speaking, I would not necessarily harmless. I know we're divergent, but hear me out here. They're not necessarily harmless though, but they, like James said, they won't bother you.
They're
But
not
they're-
actively going after people.
Yeah, they're like Crocs though. Crocs, if they look at you, just look the other way. Don't even bother looking at them. But the Gators though, like they're more docile by comparison to
It
Crocs.
depends on where they are. If people have been feeding
True.
them, because gators tend to associate people with food once you start feeding them. And you know, a gator's natural instinct when it feels reverberation inside the water is to go towards it. And for example, down here in Florida, someone was riding a bicycle in a kind of swampy sort of trail, and their kid
Oh.
went a little bit off the trail, kind of fell off sideways. It was that fast. The gator had already snatched him, pulled him under, and took him for a little death spiral thing. It's terrifying. That's why I don't get anywhere near. You don't jump in a fucking canal in Florida. Everybody knows that. The only people who die from that stuff are tourists.
Okay, so
I feel
I have
bad
a bit
for
of a
laughing.
fucked up idea based on that
Alright.
story.
Oh, good.
Ninja
Okay,
alligators.
okay.
Here it is.
No. So I have a bit of a fucked up story with that. Or an
Make it quick,
idea, I
we're
should say.
diverging.
No. So we should have like a fucking like oni like alligator or crocodile, right? And just as like a way to like kind of bait new players, they go into the creek and just any subtle movement will just attract this like creature that's gonna fuck their shit up.
It's terrifying
geez, so
already.
it's
I couldn't stand the alligators in Resident Evil 5. Genuinely horror-inducing. Like, really and truly.
Yeah, 'cause you never know what they're gonna come up. So like that was honestly fear right there.
Yeah.
I think I died to like the first alligator crocodile I ran into in Metal Gear Solid 3 the first time.
Oh,
I played
nice.
that.
Oh, I was fucking with those things, man. I like messing with them. I get behind them, punch them a little bit, and then just smack with it.
Yeah, I tried to kick it. It tail whipped me.
Here we go. Let me, real quick, while we're doing this, you guys just need to see this. Let me drag it over. This is the gator that is currently, this picture is yesterday old. And this is right near where I lift. Like, I lift at a barn on my property, and there's a gator. He's probably the size of a pretty big dog in the little lake that's on my property.
That thing saw a child too, so
It's insane. You throw a little stick into the water, and you watch that fool just, I mean, as fast as you can imagine, just show up where those ripples start. It's cool as hell.
You're gonna have to name him at some point if he sticks around.
And there's a little baby one in there now too, so I'm starting to think about that.
Brandon, goddammit.
Okay.
Why would you do this?
So
I shit my
I
pants.
think
I'm not
we're
scared
pretty
of
good
snakes,
on
but
number
like, holy
11,
shit.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so why don't we end things off? So to end things off, if you had the power of God to bring back a game or series via sequel, remake, re-release, or revival, which game or series would that be? You know damn well I'm gonna say Onimusha.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of
Like-
At
course.
least
Like I
Onimusha
said-
is already in reality has a fair chance of coming back, or at least the remakes might happen or remaster.
Yeah, and like, you know, like I said, I have this like ridiculous idea for like a new like trilogy of games in the back of my mind that's like living real estate free. and again, I'm going to emphasize this, Capcom. If you want free real estate, like I will give you these ideas for free. You could even take credit for it. I don't care. Like I just want this to happen, right? But like, yeah, I think Onimusha in particular, that's the one thing that I really want to see come back.
You know, and the shitty thing is too, is it's totally doable. And given
Yeah.
the market share that they had when the games first released, and accounting for modern gamers not being as willing to pick it up, you could still spend a pittance, you know, just an indie game developer's price to build something where you only are 3D modeling certain assets in the environment and the rest are 2D flat images. It's a game that's so cheap and easy to make from for a company like Capcom, who has so many resources already at its disposal. It's almost criminal that they haven't done this yet. But again, it goes back to the idea that, oh, these are antiquated ideas and design concepts, and therefore just cannot be done anymore.
Or here's an idea. Since and I don't know why Capcom keeps doing this, but they keep having Neobards do like their side online multiplayer ventures, right? For RE.
Yeah.
Why not just stop having them do that and just make them work on like smaller projects like that? Like you can have I guess like to test the waters, do like a side Onimusha game. It doesn't necessarily have to be Onimusha 4, because the last Onimusha game, like legitimate game that we left off with, was Shin Onimusha Dawn of Dreams, which is what it's known in Japan, but it's in the US it's just called Onimusha Dawn of Dreams. But then other than that, we had a web browser game, Onimusha Soul. So like that was legitimately like the last game. So I don't see why you couldn't just, you know, take Neobards and just have them do like these smaller projects to kind of, you know, more or less test the waters to see if people are, you know, on top of like the remasters, to see if people are still interested in these franchises.
What style format would you put it in? I assume you would maybe something like Onimusha 3?
Yeah, so Onimusha 3 I think was like, well, like keep in mind, Onimusha 2 is my favorite game in that series. So what I would want,
purely, like mechanically and all that.
so I would kind of want like a blend of 2 and 3, basically, because 2 introduced some ideas that 3 ended up cutting out. And I mean that more so in the gameplay perspective, because like you had
extra
this,
moves and whatnot.
yeah, like which wasn't done in Onimusha 3. They just cut that out. And then Dawn of Dreams brought back some of those ideas, but I don't think they did them as well as they did in 2. Like having the hub area and being able to like talk to various NPCs and get like trading items and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I like that idea. I think like I agree with everybody else in the sense that it doesn't need to be so randomized or RNG heavy, you know.
Yeah.
So I think
I
I would
definitely agree with it for sure.
Yeah, so I think like I'd basically want like an Onimusha 4. I think the ideal thing would be to have it be like a mix of what 2 and 3 were, where you have things like branching paths and a bond system, basically, so that way you can basically keep going back to that game and experience different stories and different scenarios with these characters, but otherwise have an overarching, you know, singular narrative like Onimusha 2 had, where yeah, you do have these side quests and side scenarios, but the main story is still the same. But also, like, you know, what Onimusha 3 and technically Dawn of Dreams expanded on to an extent is, you know, having a more free camera, a lock-on system that, you know, admittedly Dawn of Dreams was right in adding in. Just hopefully not as handholdy as Dawn of Dreams, where you always have a second character on hand. Eason's being completely irrelevant with a magic system that basically acts as a second Eason, stuff like that. So I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but basically, yeah, I want Onimusha to come back.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to go next though, because I actually have a few games though, but I would try my best to keep them short. Keyword try.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start with the obvious one, which is Ninja Gaiden 4, or where we're gonna call the next one, right? Now, I wouldn't be against them doing like a spin-off game with like involving like say Hayate and his clan Mugen Tensho, and then of course involve Kasumi and Yan in it. I would, or have one with Rachel as a hunter. I wouldn't be against it at all though. But that being said, though, like the main bread and butter with Ryu Hayabusa, I definitely okay. Since now, obviously, everybody knows that Neo is canon to the Ninja Gaiden sister series, right? They should definitely take notes from those series as far as like enemy variety and enemy design. The one thing that honestly Ninja Gaiden definitely falls flat on is just variety, enemies, and design wise. So, and since their sister series though, they should take notes from how Neo designed their enemies, not mechanically, just pure design, how they look, and also the amount of enemies that they have like throughout a stage, for example. So that's something they should take notes from. Also, I think Ninja Gaiden should at least have a hard lock on if you want to focus on just one target at a time for whatever particular reason, or if you're in a boss fight. Because the one thing that I noticed when replaying these games on the Master Collection is that, especially in 2, the camera is actually pretty bad in certain fights. So, and that could have been easily remedied just by literally having a lock on. So yeah, that's that.
Because Arian was saying he wished it had weapon switching.
Weapon switching, that right there, I'm not entirely sure on the stance on, because I don't want it to be like Devil May Cry, because it's not Devil May Cry. But at the same time, though, but on one hand, though, it'll be more convenient just like hit left or right on the D-pad and then switch a weapon like right there and then instead of just going to the sub menu and doing that. So there's that to consider.
I think if they did it in a way where you can't be like DMC where you're mid combo and then you just switch and you go into something else. I think you'd have to stop the combo.
Yeah, something like that. Because even actually Onimusha Remastered, it does that. You can switch your weapons, your ranger, your melee weapon though, but you need to stand still to do it. Now, granted though, I do think Onimusha can benefit from weapon switching on the fly though. Just I don't want to be too democratic aesthetically, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing with like, I don't want to go too much on this, but like with the new Onimusha, like as much as I'm okay with them taking maybe certain like cues from Devil May Cry, kind of like how Onimusha, Devil May Cry, and Dino Crisis all started off, and everybody considered them to be like RE clones, basically. I want them to all stand out. So like even if Onimusha does take certain aspects from Devil May Cry, or even like a new Ninja Gaiden, or whatever game that we want to see come back, I don't want them to be like, okay, well, let's just take these aspects and just make it too much like the other game, because then we kind of lose that uniqueness and variety that some of these games had.
Yeah, that coincidentally enough though, that's actually one of my little gripes with, say, Democrat 5, for example. It lost a lot of some of its charm and things that made it stood out, from the RE clones that were like, let's say, even Democrat 2, I know, hot topic, Democrat 3, even 4, So I don't want them to do that same thing with Onimusha. I want them to keep what made Onimusha, so great for 3 games, 4 if you like Dawn of Dreams, while also bring it into a fresh light, for 2021 or whatever you want the game to come out in. But that being said, though, going on from Onimusha, I do want a Sekiro sequel, but only on one condition. I want them to get rid of the Soulsborne mechanics. Like, as much as I am enjoying the game, though, I don't like the idea of me literally getting 2-shotted despite me having a good. Like, God forbid if I didn't have a good health bar, I'm going to get 1-shotted by a particular boss.
I always find it, as a side note with that game, one reason why I get sick of it is because I'm sick of everybody else can take like 40 hits, but I can take 2. I'm like, I don't like this. I would prefer if it was even on both playing fields.
Yeah, like I definitely
as easily as I do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that though. Now, granted though, technically that is the case if you build the posture, but that varies from enemy, boss to boss, and also your skill level and what you have equipped on you as Sekiro.
See, now I'm going to do something that I'm very well known for doing, and take this all back to Stalker. Stalker had the best approach to difficulty I've ever seen before, and it's the most successful in my opinion. When you increase the difficulty in Stalker, you not only increase how lethal bullets are to you, but how lethal bullets are to the enemy. And I think all difficulty sliders in these sort of technically proficient, super fast-paced, like combat-driven games should be, okay, I want to raise the difficulty so I could kill enemies easier. The only thing that makes that worse is they can kill me easier. I don't know, something about that just, it feels so much more balanced.
Ninja
Yeah,
Gaiden
you know what?
kind of, sort of did that, at least in the 360 version, since the enemies died a lot easier. But like, if you put the game to Master Ninja, you can die in like 3 hits, but the enemies also are very easy to dismember and kill immediately. So I think
Actually,
Ninja Gaiden sort of got close to that.
actually, a little correction though. On the 360 version, you can take a little bit more hits from lesser enemies. Just the bosses are the problem. Slight correction on that one though. But yes, you're right on the money on that one though.
Like, they had more numerous amounts of enemies in the original version of 2, but they were a lot weaker. They were not sponges like Sigma. So that was the main difference. But yeah, the 2 got close to it. It was in the realm.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Oh shit, that's another game I had in my mind, but I actually forgot. Oh fuck it, Tenchu. No, where's Tenchu at?
Oh, there you go. All
Oh,
right.
damn it, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, because Sekiro, I'm sure some people probably know this though, but it was originally going to be a Tenchu game though, but they decided to change it into Sekiro because it diverged a little too much from what made Tenchu, which thank God for that, because honestly I probably have a different opinion. This was a Tenchu game.
It's not even. I don't know why they haven't. It's not hard to make a good Tenchu game. Tenchu's not
it's
complicated
really
in its format.
Like they already have a surprisingly strong foundation with Sekiro. Just they need to again get rid of the Soulsborne stuff and make it more grounded.
It has to be separate from Souls. Like, that's like if they made, like, as a side thing, like, say people want Armored Core to come back.
Yeah, that should be a
They
Souls
made that
game.
like a mech Souls game. I think people would hate that. Surprised they never remastered Tenchu 3. I'm surprised Tenchu in general hasn't gotten like a little collection. That kind of irks me.
Oh, that'd be
One
amazing.
and 2 definitely need a remake though, but the thing that 3 really desperately needs is a control revamp, because for the love of Christ, I hate inverted controls for cameras. Like, I don't know why that was so popular in Democrat.
Yeah, that was
least-
huge back then.
Yeah, like even Democrat 1 had it though for like the flying segment though. It's inverted. Like why did every damn PS2 game at the earliest stages had inverted controls? Why? Sorry, that's a tangent.
You don't like DMC1 with the swimming and it's inverted?
Like, no, I can live with that. Honestly, I can live with that though.
Because
The flight section was more of a nuisance though, because how it was. So swimming, that was like nothing. I could deal with that. But
I'm not a serial killer. I can't do inverted. That's all. I always got to go with something extreme for that. I can't wrap my head around it. There's like 1 or 2 games where I've
you're
been
not
fine with it.
You're not a military flight pilot, so you're not going into dogfights trying to
you're not
maneuver
flying
against.
legit.
Yeah, trying to
weirdly,
maneuver
games-
against like Russian aircraft.
I feel like inverted controls work fine in like a flight simulator, but that's it. I don't like it anywhere else.
Yeah, they feel more natural in a flight sim, but they don't work right in in
Literally
anything else. So
yeah.
so like Tenchu, yeah, and
Oh, God,
that's what I was
grapple hook
asking.
is
Like,
so
I'm
annoying.
kind of surprised Tenchu 3 and I think Tenchu Z or even Fatal Shadows, like none of those games had like a remaster, and then like for the first 2 games they didn't get remakes, so it's like
Don't get me started. Tenchu Z is just still
Yeah.
stuck to the 360. I'm like, you could have PC ported this game by now, Microsoft. What are you
There's
they
doing?
so
could have had
many
the
from that
backwards
era.
compatibility for it.
I think it's a launch 360 game. They've never ported it or done anything else with it.
With that era, there are so many examples of that. I mean, you have The Darkness on PS3. Like, there's a million different games that would have been incredible on PC that just never left that era. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, but it shut down servers, by the way. Oh, so you won't get the shit again. Okay, different story. But man, that's all the games I have in mind. Listen, unless you want to count the Shinobi Nightshade series as well.
I would love to see another Shinobi. I wouldn't mind a remake, actually, of the original Shinobi.
So the 3DS game.
Oh no, I mean, well, it's not original, but I
You
guess
mean
the
the
PS2
PS2 reboot, right?
I'd love to play that again.
I
don't want them to
would actually
change
like to
too
see
much.
Nightshade.
I guess I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be
Nightshade was
opposed
good.
To, like, Nightshade as well. I wouldn't be opposed to like a semi one-for-one remake, but obviously modern conveniences and better controls and things like that.
So
them to change the
actually, the
ending.
thing about the controls for both Shinobi PS2 and Nightshade is that, or Kunoichi, depending on where you got it from, is that you have fully customizable controls. So that was the one thing, like, and that's a thing that I
It's a
don't
dying
understand
idea,
why.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't understand why more games don't have this.
It's cinematic.
Have this option. Yeah, because sometimes I genuinely hate the control schemes that developers give us, like, which is something like I hate about Silent Hill 3, because Silent Hill 3, it doesn't have fully customizable controls like the first two games, but that's a whole other thing. But with what is it with fully customizable controls like in Shinobi and Nightshade, you could basically, like, if you want the dash or the dodge button on circle and make it feel a little bit more like Devil May Cry, you could do that. You could have X to jump. You could have like square or triangle as your attack button and stuff like that. And I really like that about those games. So.
Oh, and I guess the other thing, I would never touch Hotsuma's design. He's perfect. He looks so cool. There's nothing to touch with him, in my opinion.
You know, I think they could actually do like maybe a modern retouch update. No, I can see it though.
If they want to add
Probably
in
add something.
extra details, but his general design should be the same.
Especially the super long scarf. That's like so trademark for him now.
Yeah, they gave that to Joe in the 3DS remake of the first game. So Joe has the long scarf too.
I like the little eyeballs on the thing above his, like.
Oh yeah, like the
that's dope.
headband.
Yeah.
Yeah, the headband's super sick. So I
Good.
Really quick, I was gonna say something about the headband before you go, Daybreaker.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, with like the Shinobi PS2 and Nightshade, I like how for those games they make it like more modern, like almost like night vision tactical gear, but for like that 3DS remake, it's just like a typical headband that you would see on like a ninja or samurai.
Yeah.
All right. You want to go, Daybreaker?
Oh yeah. So for me personally, I've got a couple. So obviously, I said it earlier on, but I would love to see the Ganbare Goemon games make a resurgence. Konami gave us a Castlevania collection and a Contra collection, so I don't see why it would be outside the realm of possibility for them to do the same for the Goemon series. I think that would be great. Like, I think that would be a good way to invest interest and see if people still would want that series around, so that way you could just, jam pack that collection with, a handful of the games and put it out there. Like, shit, I'll probably buy it twice, because I'm already buying the freaking Castlevania collection twice because I'm buying the physical.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to do the same for the Contra collection, so it's like I would buy it twice. I'd buy it digitally and then I'd buy the physical when it comes out. So that would definitely be something I'd like to see. I would also, you guys brought up Tenchu and brought up maybe either getting like a PC port or something of that nature for the series. If I was going to throw someone out there as a potential developer who could potentially remaster it for PC, I would love to see Night Dive Studios do it. They have done phenomenal work with the remasters that they've done for the PC ports, Rock 1, 2, and Forsaken.
Oh yeah.
So I would totally be fine with giving it to them. They also did Doom 64 recently as well. They actually officially helped with the Doom 64 port. So I would absolutely love to see them handle it. I think that would be a good studio pick. Also, too, I didn't have a proper time to say this earlier, but I would, in terms of like samurai and ninja games, can we get more with female protagonists as the lead? We don't really have a lot of those aside from Nightshade and then Red Ninja on PS2, and of course,
and whatnot.
They always get relegated to like the companion character or at least the secondary for some reason.
I mean, at least I believe.
Sorry.
Yeah, I believe Ayame from, or is it Ayane or Ayame from Tenchu?
Tenchu. Ayane.
Yeah, Ayane. She gets her own campaign, so that's at least something. But yeah, I would like to
Fatal
see
Shadows as well. Both of the female characters were the main characters for that game.
Yep.
Mhm.
There was no Ricky Morrow or anybody else, as far as I recall.
I really don't understand it myself, but whenever possible, if there's a selectable like female character, I'm always the girl. Like I always main females in fighting games. I think aesthetically, it looks good to me. I don't know the female form. So yeah, I'm all on board with that for sure.
Oh, you're a guy.
Yeah.
So, tough.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
But I definitely
I'm
agree with you because like as our friend Celestial Reaper Arian, he also says like no, he loves playing as female characters because female characters can do things that male characters cannot do just because of one they're guys. So let's take Bayonetta for example, right? No, Dante, for example, because that's like the comparison people like to use, right? Ain't gonna do the shit she does. You know, even if Dante's a bit flamboyant sometimes, he ain't gonna do like all those flips and splits and whatnot, right?
He's not gonna turn half naked for a second.
Yeah, so like you don't go see that from Dante. So Bayonetta has that cover, right? So it gives her something that stands out more. On top of that, you also like say 2B or A2, right? The way they fight, the way they animate, it feels different and it feels nicer compared to what you play as 9S or any other male character for that matter, right? So you could do things with the female, with their form, how they fight, all that compared to the guy, So I definitely agree, like, the female characters are underrated, but not for the reasons that the common folk on Twitter think.
Yeah.
And before anybody in the comments of this video says it, I know about the Senran Kagura games. I've played the Senran Kagura games. I don't want big titty ninja girls. I just want ninja samurai girls who are actually like, in a proper narrative story. Like the Senran Kagura games are fine for what they are. I get the appeal of them, and Daidoji is best girl in fucking Senran Kagura. So, but yeah, like I just want more in the style of like Ghost of Tsushima, just focused on female characters.
Yeah, because there is a place for that very fan service type of like female character for sure. But I feel like it's hard to have a serious tone or story if your main character, it just takes you out of a situation when it's just constant eye candy all the time.
Yeah.
I don't mind if it's like a very rare like thing that happens in the game.
Sure,
like
absolutely.
If it's an Easter egg or something, I don't mind. But otherwise, yeah, I agree.
Even with the eye candy effect though, let's be honest here though, like name one that's like one female character that's very conservative and that's really badass. Just plenty out there. Like they could have a big bust all day, right? Though, but they could be conservative and they still could kick a lot of ass. Like there's plenty out there. So
yeah, no, I'd love to see it.
It's usually well, at least before stupidity hit us 10 years later. Most female characters usually were designed with both sex appeal and being badass. I miss that, and I hate that you can't have one without the other or the other way around.
Yeah.
I don't like what happened to Lara Croft and what they made her. I don't even want to get into that. I despise what she is now.
Yeah.
Took all the fun out of her.
I think people don't understand that in a situation where you'd be playing a female protagonist in a game with a lot of combat, that's someone who's really well trained. And, like my wife, she lifts with me every day. It's totally doable for a woman to have a very athletic and toned physique if there's someone who's trained in doing physical activities over and over again. I think people tend to pretend like it's unrealistic for women to have like really nice bodies in these video games. It's like, well, I mean, if you went to the gym every single day and, were swinging a 20-pound training sword every day, you'd have great shoulders and, awesome abs too.
I mean, yeah, God, okay, this is so divergent though. I hate to bring it up. So fuck. But like, it's a
as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a thing that you don't see like guys complaining about other guys looking good unless you're really insecure about yourself.
We are very opposite. If we see a character that looks cool and they're buff, we probably will say, "I want to be just like."
We're
this
on
dude. I need
board.
to go to
Yeah,
the gym.
absolutely.
I want to be just like this guy. I think people don't understand that why you don't see like heavy set characters or unattractive characters. People don't want to see this. I'm just being blunt. People want to be entertained, right?
I don't
know how to put this. Like I'm here for fantasy. I'm here to be entertained. I would rather see a good role model, I guess, for myself versus. I don't understand the obsession with making characters that have to relate to you. I don't need to relate to every character. Let's just make them cool.
No,
I'm that simple.
I relate to literally
even-
no characters.
I mean, honestly,
I
you don't
understand that
need to, not in the most literal sense though. Like you can still like like sympathize with a character, or you could find something that you could relate to in one way or another, just not to the most literal sense. No, I'm not gonna be
Yeah.
a badass chucking a giant sword around though, but yeah, I can find something that I can like see myself in that character, whether how they use their emotions, how they deal with situations, that kind of way.
Yeah.
Dante's
See
a good
the-
example, right? Because a good chunk of us know that character. Like he's got all these family problems. I don't
Exactly.
need to be a half demon, super badass man to sympathize with him or relate in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be me. He could just have one trait that so happens to relate to me, and that's fine.
See, I can turn this into a samurai ninja related topic too. So like for me, like, for some of the characters that I relate to, like I could really relate to how they portray Yukimura Sanada in the Samurai Warrior series, as well as a bit of Nobunaga Oda in the Samurai Warrior series. Nobunaga mostly because he's just kind of going against the grain of like everybody, and that legitimately happened in history too. But like, he's very drastically different, and in that sense, they kind of portray him as like the like evil demon king type of character.
Yeah.
But I could really relate to that in the sense that like everybody calls him a fool for wanting to not follow what everybody else does, and then with Yukimura, especially like towards the end of his story, is like his whole personality is about just doing what he believes is right, or sticking to what he believes in. So and I could really relate to that. Like it just, at least in the sense of like, just because somebody else wants me to believe in something else doesn't mean I'm gonna necessarily change how I feel about it. And everybody died.
All at once.
Oh man, that was a huge
Uh,
divergence from the topic or of the podcast altogether, though. But honestly, I feel like they need to be said.
Oh, for
Hey,
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sorry that
fun.
I kind of kickstarted that. I apologize.
No, it's cool. I mean,
I just wanted to get ahead of commenters before they were like, "Well, the fucking Senran Kagura exists. You got a ninja-centric female-only game." It's like, no, that's not what I mean.
Since you bring that up, Daybreaker, actually, there's a way to do, because if you're doing a female ninja in history, they definitely use their body to get what they wanted, whether it's information or something else. So that,
Yeah, for sure. If I had a better
that's
body,
the
I'd be
part of
using
that.
it to get what I want
Yeah.
too.
I mean, that's like all that. That's my Shiranui in a fucking nutshell. I mean, that's like the whole thing
Yeah,
about her fighting
doesn't that
style
have-
and
Oh,
shit.
yeah, it's the
She doesn't
Shiranui
have
school.
to-
She's supposed to be a ninja.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's like an example of, despite of what's on the outside, I mean, literally on the outside, the inside of her, she's like a different character. So she uses what her assets to take advantage of the situation
Sure.
and just kicks a lot of ass.
Hmm.
I totally misheard that.
No, yeah, I bet you did, Sing. Considering what we're talking about, I bet you did.
hormones are frying his brain right now. Poor boy.
I think we can wrap up now.
Sweet.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna read down the list and we'll go from there. So Jared, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Avalanche Jared, Jared, and on YouTube, Avalanche Reviews.
Nice. After that, we got Daybreaker. Where can we find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter and at Daybreaker Rain, where I talk about gaming things and do gaming related content on my channel.
Nice. After that, we got Devil Hunter James. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at DevHunterJames.
Nice. After that, we got Singlong. Where can we find you?
You can find me at Twitter at sing_long.
And then last but not least, where can we find you, Brandon?
Now you goddamn best. I'm just kidding. You can find me on Twitter at Immortal Brando.
I was waiting
You
for
find me-
something.
You find me on Twitch at Sir Brando. And what I said last time, oh yeah, now you goddamn business. Have a fabulous day.
Okay, and then you guys can find me as biodevil_dom on YouTube, Twitter, rare occasions on Twitch. Rare occasions on YouTube too,
Record,
'cause I
that's
don't.
never.
Yeah, very rare occasions, extremely rare. But
Don't worry,
yeah,
I'm bad too. It's all right.
yeah. Um, so I'm trying to work on an RE7 review as well as an RE3 original, not remake review yet. But we'll see where that gets me. But until then, this has been pretty fun. It's been fun talking to you all, and I hope we can do it again sometime with other topics.
Hell yeah.
But in the meantime,
Yeah.
it's been a blast. So we will see you all later.
Later, everybody.
Bye.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Okay.